We're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Inside Movies Galore, where we are passing this festive atmosphere and theme of a Christmas cheer for you. As I bring you over to Brandon to tell us exactly what kind of Christmas it was that we watched tonight. Go ahead. Take it away.
We're going to end our holiday month with a holiday film that is very entrenched in the season. And we're talking, of course, about the 1954 film White Christmas by director Michael Curtiz. And this is a very interesting film. It is about a group, like a duo, played by Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye, who are starting in the army. They become famous and try to find love with the beautiful sisters of Rosemary Clooney and Vera Ellen and save a failing hotel run by a former general.
That was Bing Crosby?
How did you not know that?
Yeah.
I had no idea what he looked like.
Oh my god.
Well, you have to know what he sounded like.
There you go.
he's got one of the most-
Absolutely none whatsoever. I've never heard him sing
Well,
before.
singing
kidding?
sound.
he's got one of the most recognizable voices in music history.
Hey, that doesn't entirely work considering that Vera Ellen's singing was dubbed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
could
sing. Yeah. Well, but Bing Crosby, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most recognizable faces and voices in film and music history, entertainment history.
So,
and I have to correct you, Brandon. It's actually pronounced Michael Curtiz. I've heard it spoken aloud.
Oh, for God's sake.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. Yeah. No, I've heard it spoken aloud. That's where it comes from because I think I want to say he was Hungarian originally. I'm going to check on that.
Well, this definitely has the feel of a Hungarian film.
Yeah, he was Hungarian. Yep.
So, any case, because Kim is here and she may not be here for the whole, I had thought it would be fun to have her share her first impressions. So go ahead. Was this your first time watching White Christmas?
You know it was not my first time watching White Christmas, okay? Why are you even asking that?
I know, but they don't know.
No, it was the first time I saw it was when you and your mom had me watching it several years ago during Christmas. I had never seen it before, obviously. I was like, I thought it was gonna be kind of dumb, but then of course I enjoyed it, and then like the whole time was peppered with comments from your dad about the receptionist, the secretary, whatever she was at the hotel, calling her a bitch and everything else because he hated her.
Oh my!
But yeah, but I rather enjoyed it. I was like, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I did not think I was going to enjoy the singing and the dancing, but I was very impressed. I was like, man, they don't make Hollywood stars like that anymore, where you have to sing and dance and act, and to be the full package in Hollywood. They don't do that anymore. So I enjoyed it. It's become our routine for Christmas.
Not even Justin Timberlake?
I'm sorry, come again? That little culture vulture?
Oh, he counts.
No, he doesn't count. He's a culture vulture. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and start to my bottom right with Jake. Was this your first time seeing White Christmas?
First, I gotta say, Kim, imagine they remake it with Justin Timberlake in the Danny Kaye role.
Don't even suggest it.
Don't you dare.
Wow, you're gonna be really mad when you guys get to me.
And let's see here. Florence Pugh and Taylor Swift might be the singing sisters. I don't
I'd see that.
Oh, jeez. But not Taylor Swift.
No, they
All right,
they
so-
redid it with all it'd be full. It'd be
Anyway, I think Kroll was trying to say something.
What were you saying, Kroll?
What's up?
I said if they redid it, it'd be full women because that's the way they do things these days.
That's entirely possible.
No.
But
at any rate, I this is kind of like last week's It's Wonderful Life in that I kind of grew up with the movie, and I really, really don't know my first impression, my first introduction. It's never been as part of the fabric of my life as It's a Wonderful Life. I've watched it more infrequently over the years, maybe every, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe. Um, I've watched it a fair bit, though, and I think I probably did see both of them last year. So it wasn't like a huge gap between viewings. This was my first, of course, my viewing this year. It was kind of funny because I was sitting there, I was all set to watch it alone because no one else wanted to watch it. And then ended up having a couple people sitting in watching it anyway. And, they enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, see, it's a fun movie. I do think that it is a movie that has some really, really, really great points. And but it's uneven. Certain of the numbers are wonderful. The performance by Bing Crosby is solid. I do think that generally the main cast is solid. I think Dean Jagger is awesome as the general. It's one of the reasons I put the picture up because the general is just a great character. And there's some great stuff going on. And of course, the bookending performances of White Christmas being among them. But they seriously should have cut at least one of the numbers. And I think there are a couple that are pretty weak. And so overall, I think it's a flawed movie, but it's a good one. It's enjoyable. And it's certainly one I'm happy to watch every now and then, around this time of year.
All right, very good. How about you, Forrest? Was this your first time seeing White Christmas?
Yes, I've never seen. I was aware of the movie's existence.
Oh wow!
But I had never watched it. And I've heard so I've never really listened to Bing Crosby's rendition of White Christmas, but I've heard I think it was the Drifters version, which played in both Home Alone and
right.
Santa Claus. So I'd heard the song. So I heard the song, but I'd never watched the movie itself until last night. And it's I'm not generally not a fan of musicals, but this is a very well done movie. Like the color, like the use of color is just wow. That just like immediately caught my attention was like the use of color. It's so good. It's like so well done, and also it's got a lot of production value. Very likable cast. And I kind of agree with Jake that maybe they could have trimmed maybe a number or two. But I definitely think if you're in the mood for some feel good Christmas viewing, this is not a bad, especially if this is not a bad choice to go if you were in the mood for feel good Christmas viewing and you don't want to sit through Hallmark schmaltz, then this is not a bad choice. This is not a bad choice.
All right, very good. Roll, is this your first time seeing this?
No, I've saw it quite a few times as a kid. I can't tell you exactly how many times. I want to say when I was a kid, I pretty much was forced to watch it. Wasn't really that much of a fan. I remember watching it. I remember kind of being, a classic, like It's a Wonderful Life. But I'd much rather watch Miracle on 34th Street when I was a kid. But now watching it again, though, I appreciate it much better. I've since, absolutely loved Danny Kaye because of the court jester, and I noticed, a lot of similarities of how funny he was and how he dances and stuff. And I'm a big fan of Danny Kaye, so I enjoyed it much more. I laughed in quite a few scenes, and the cast I thought did a very well job. one. I had a few questions on the movie, like how do they pay for New York and ended up in Vermont? But I don't know. Maybe I blinked out for a second, missed it. But overall, I thought it was a fun Christmas movie. I liked it much more as an adult than I did as a child. So that's pretty much my first impressions.
All right. So, Dustin, is this your first time watching White Christmas?
Okay, so I'm pretty sure Kim is gonna pop off at me for this.
I better leave the mic on then.
I have basically never even heard of this movie before. I've heard the phrase White Christmas. I didn't know it was a movie. I've heard the name Bing Crosby. I didn't know he was a singer. I didn't know he was in this movie. I didn't know that. I probably knew he sang White Christmas and just did not make the connection or ever hear him sing it. Or at the very minimum, I didn't know he sang it.
Oh, won the Academy Award for his rendition in the movie Holiday Inn, which kind of predates this and sets this up.
Well, and the song White Christmas is the best-selling single of all time, still, I think.
No, it doesn't have quite as much producers on the Holiday Inn.
So this actually is that guy. Okay.
Also, Dustin, I just want to point out, you might know Bing Crosby's son, Harry, from the first Friday the 13th.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. It's honestly cooler to me than anything Bing Crosby has. Well, let's not get into that.
Well, he was a jerk, so
yeah, he wasn't exactly a great guy, but still.
I mean, I liked this movie. This was a pretty good movie, except for one alarming moment.
What, the minstrel show number?
That caught my attention. That was
that caught me very off guard. Yeah. I was not prepared.
I have to
notice it was a product of its time.
Well, there will be comments on that.
I have to say though, in terms of the actual performance of it, could have been a whole lot worse. Now the subject matter is bad enough on its own.
I mean, I suppose if you had to do it, it was maybe. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this. It was maybe the most tasteful way you could have done it.
Yeah, I mean they didn't do full blackface like they easily could have done.
Thank God.
And they didn't have any They didn't have any imagery to go with it. It was just like the phrase, you know. So it was
just the word minstrel.
Like that alone is kind of enough, though, you know. So we're like, ugh. But otherwise, I was pretty pleasantly surprised with this movie. It's like, oh, okay, so this is actually pretty good. Is this like a classic or something? Do people see this every year? Or...
Oh yeah.
I've never seen it on TV. I've never seen it advertised. Wow. I've never heard anyone talk about it. Like I came into this like 99% fresh. Like I have heard the phrase White Christmas before, and I have heard the name Bing Crosby before, and I was pretty sure that was Danny Kaye. But I didn't quite recognize him. That's the full extent of my knowledge of this movie going in.
Do you remember Disney's Ichabod and Mr. Toad?
Yes.
Bing Crosby was the narrator of the Sleepy Hollow story in that.
Not to mention the super creepy Santa Claus is Coming to Town Rankin Bass production. Or
how about anything else?
Well, I kind of liked the way it started, sort of setting up like the war background.
Yeah, we'll definitely.
So I thought it was going to take place. I thought more of the movie was going to take place in like that time period and not be like a post. I didn't think it was going to be a post-war movie. I thought it was going to be like, oh, they're going to have to survive, battle with Christmas. Like I thought the name White Christmas was ironic.
No,
and it was going to be a war movie.
No, this was a film that was done at the height of. This was a film
that would have been cool. Come on,
that would have been a good subject for a different movie, certainly.
No, this was done at the height of the war, at least in the very beginning, because it was set in like 1944. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I guess
All
we'll
right.
move on. Tammy, was this your first time seeing White Christmas?
No, I grew up with it. My great grandparents loved, I mean, they loved musicals, and you know, every year we watched this. And as a kid, I thought it was neat because I was used to watching the different musical movies with them, you know. And then as I got older, I appreciated it more because, like said, was it Kim that said that not many nowadays you don't have people that can sing and dance and act. They don't do that anymore. So I very much appreciate the movie for what it is now that I'm older, and I think I find it very enjoyable. I do agree that there's probably a couple of the acts that could have been cut. So, but I'm sure we'll discuss that later. But otherwise, I find it very enjoyable and I look forward to seeing it. And then because I grew up watching with my great grandparents, it makes me think of them at Christmas time.
Hmm, very good. How about you, Dave? This your first experience with White Christmas?
On the whole, this was a film that, while during my childhood, ended up being on every Christmas, and it was one that was played generally in my household, and but for me, I always paid it more attention to like the highlights of the film, so I never fully got to see the full experience of it, actually pay attention to it. But this time was like maybe my first time actually seeing all the bits and pieces that I would pay attention to, all in like one kit and caboodle. So it was a very pleasurable experience. I as well think that there are not that many films where actors are expected to, you know, dance and sing. I mean, vaudeville isn't what it used to be. You know, I mean, almost every actor from this period in time at least knew how to tap dance or do some ballet or at least do some stage acting and stage dancing choreography. You know, and this is not something that is technically used in films that we see in this day and age. I mean, not since I think La La Land have we seen anything or The Great Showman. You know, just recently. Um, but yeah, I love this story because honestly, it's an American movie. I feel like it's an American movie because a lot of films around this time were done for the war effort and shown to the armies while they were wherever they were, you know, to be able to have something as a pastime to watch during their respite of having a gritty, hard, bloodied battle is something that they would look forward to, you know, at the end of the day, and oftentimes they had very little of entertainment to begin with. So I think this is an interesting story and done in respect to, you know, the army, you know, and the men who have served. And I think that that's why I enjoy this movie.
Maybe definitely that tradition, but even the Korean War had ended by the time this came out, so definitely. Though I wonder if it was shown in the Vietnam or something like that during those times.
Maybe.
All right.
So Dane, is this your first time watching White Christmas?
Absolutely not. This was actually the first Christmas film I ever saw, and it was the one that my family had on every year. And it's the first one that I really think of. It's Michael Curtiz is a very accomplished director from the golden age of Hollywood. He did so many great films from that period, like he did most famously Casablanca, one of the best movies ever made. He did The Adventures of Robin Hood. He did Yankee Doodle Dandy, another great patriotic kind of musical, which this one mentions minstrel show, but Yankee Doodle Dandy has actual blackface. But it is,
That's fair.
it is period appropriate. It's just very uncomfortably period appropriate. Um, and he did so many great films from that era. And this is a great exhibition of, I think, his talents, because he did a lot of different genres and everything like that. But this film, just in and of itself, I think it really stands out in my memory, not just because of nostalgia, but I really think that this film doesn't get the credit it deserves for its comedic writing. I think it's got really smart, really snappy dialogue, really great exchanges between the characters. The actors have really great chemistry. Musical numbers and the dance numbers are great. Um, and it's definitely one that I fondly associate with the time of year. Watching it again for this show, I did pick up on a lot of things that I never noticed before, or at least, yeah, they were in my brain. I just never quite connected things together. One of which was, again, I didn't really think about exactly the full implications of the whole minstrel show number historically, but again, did it about as tastefully as one could do that, to modernize. But also, like, the fact that that number, and actually most of the ones in the show itself that they're rehearsing, they are about nostalgia just as a theme, and that was an interesting thing, and I think that's part of what connected with the audiences of the time, because unlike, say, It's a Wonderful Life that we looked at last time, that one touches on the war effort, in some of the flashbacks there, but people were still pretty hot off the heels of the war, and I think they kind of wanted to put things to rest a little bit. And here, a lot of the wounds that were open from the war hadn't yet fully closed, but the release date of this, and a little bit more time had gone by, but also the release date of it, the Christmas setting, I think, and the fact that it's a much lighter film than It's a Wonderful Life, which could get pretty heavy. It's a much lighter film, and I think enough time had gone by, and it's in Technicolor, it's in VistaVision, of course, which was Paramount and the other studios. That was their way of trying to compete with television, with widescreen and other things that television couldn't provide. I think all of that came together to concoct this, really nice package that obviously made an impact, because I think this was the highest grossing film of 1954, which is a pretty cool factoid. Um, and the fact that it does endure all these years later, I think that says something about it as well. It's not just something that only the 50s audience could understand and appreciate. I think that's just a testament to what they created, and it really does kind of showcase the best of what Bing Crosby could do, what Danny Kaye could do, Rosemary Clooney, Vera Ellen, all their respective talents, and they all go together so well. And I'll get into this more as we go, but I did actually, this time around, I watched it with the Rosemary Clooney commentary, and she does pepper it with a lot of anecdotes and stuff, but there are definitely points where she feels like she's riffing her own movie, which I found pretty funny. No, it's the kind of the first movie I think of when I think of Christmas, that or any iteration of The Grinch.
All right. Well, those are awesome first impressions. I have known this movie as a Christmas movie that has been watched on Christmas Eve, well, ever since I can remember. How I got to this is my grandmother had seen this in theaters, and then once it started cycling on TV, she would insist on watching it on Christmas Eve every year, which got instilled in my mother, who then had us watching it every Christmas Eve. Of course, she's grown tired of it, but us watching the movie was in a way keeping her alive, because my grandmother on my mother's side, she passed when I was only 1 year old, so I never really got to know her. But watching this movie every year is pretty much, I guess, the best way of knowing that human being, um, who I never really got to know in life. Um, and of course, watching it continuing forward, I find it important because it's not only important for that sake, but also in the sake of remembering the times with my mother, watching it every Christmas Eve. I've watched it starting in black and white, and then in the colorized, and then on the VHS, and then on the DVD, and then this year for the first time on Blu-ray. So getting to see it in the niceness of color, and I've had varying degrees of love and not so much love for this film over the years. I even back when we did a Mystery Science Theater ripoff show way back when nobody cared about copyright stuff, which is no longer there. We did an episode on White Christmas. But in the end, it's still something that is precious in the memories. It definitely has a lot of nostalgia for me for obvious reasons. I mean, shoot, I've known it on Christmas Eve pretty much every year of my life. So to me, it's an excellent film. Very well done, very well on the choreography. I do agree that some songs probably could be taken out. The obvious one, actually, in my opinion, being choreography. But
You're not a Martha Graham fan?
it's one that that's one of those things, and
that's the one where they're like theater. Oh,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
the
Well, that
theater.
was kind of a.
That made no sense, honestly.
Well,
That was weird.
it makes sense if you know who Martha Graham is. She kind of pioneered
Right.
modern dance, and it was kind of a spoof of that style.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's just it didn't fit with the general aesthetic of it.
Right.
Well, I would disagree with that. At least thematically, because think
Well,
about
I was holding my comments on the songs until we get to them.
Yeah,
I have
well, I think that's
say
the
on
best thing to
several of
do.
these.
Go ahead.
But Brandon, I do want to ask you real quick, because one of the things I read was that VistaVision, because of the way it's structured, supposedly it cleans up better than most films of that time. At least that's what I read. So when you watched it on Blu-ray, did you feel like they really did clean it up? Like, did it cleaned up pretty?
It popped up. It popped really well.
Okay,
Definitely
that's
in
good to
comparison
know.
to the DVD. I know, Danny, you saw it on the Blu-ray, and you had told me that you thought that they did a really good job with the transfer. And Kim, what did you think? Did you think it was
The one that we watched the other night, it was clear in some parts, but there would be moments where it seemed a little almost like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Contrasty. I felt like there was.
I think
there
the
were
colors
moments.
pop too much sometimes.
Yeah,
but
There were a few moments where it was a bit much, and it seemed almost artificial.
I could see that.
But
Cool.
I know that argument about, well, the original black and white, which many people probably first saw this on. But still, it to me, Dane, did you feel like the transfer was good? You said you thought it looked pretty good, didn't you?
Well, the original black and white, I assume you mean when it was first broadcast on television, because this movie is meant to be in color and meant to have widescreen, the whole kit and caboodle, because that's how it was sold. And in this kind of movie, it wouldn't look as good in black and white. And I'm such a black and white fanatic, but I'm like, no, certain things need to be in color. This is one of them. I actually have the Blu-ray playing silently right now because it helps actually just make things kind of come in the forefront of the memory. But yeah, the picture quality is fantastic, I think. It does clean up very nicely. The picture quality is really clear. Colors really pop too. It's a very colorful film, but no, it seems. I think it does respect to the original color process as well.
Yeah, my original memories were watching it on old black
Now,
and
was
white
it
TV. So
was it put out into 4K at all?
Not yet, but as soon as
Yeah.
it does, I will go out and get it because I just have it in the normal 1080p, but I have a 4K player that upscales it, and the upscaling does look good. It doesn't look grainy or anything, so that's really good. Some
That'll be
older,
spectacular.
some of those first run Blu-rays from like when Blu-rays first came out, then you
Mhm.
put those in an upscaler, and they are noticeably grainy. Not this one.
Yeah, Planet Earth does that too in certain times, which is sad because otherwise it's a beautiful documentary.
Hmm. But that's
So
just that's just the way technology works.
So let's go ahead with the plot, and we'll cover characters along the way as we meet them. Of course, we do immediately. We start in the war with Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye entertaining the troops. Bing Crosby, of course, doing the singing, and Danny Kaye running the music box. But little do they know, their general actually is sitting in the crowd, letting them have one more night of fun before they move on, and a new general takes his place. So they have two numbers that really punctuate this of the first time you hear White Christmas, and then they also, once discovering the general, you hear we'll follow the old man.
Yeah. Yes. We'll follow the old man wherever he will go. As long as he wants to go opposite to the foe. I love that song.
I thought it was what.
It's a fun time.
I know
thought it was
like
White
pretty much
Christmas
every
that was being sung.
I know pretty
Yeah.
much every song by heart, but
we do have that lovely scene that you kind of skipped over where you have the two generals driving up in the Jeep, and the one general's like, why are they having this show in this advanced area? And and then the Waverly gets out and taps the guy driving the Jeep. He's like, give him the shortcut.
Take the shortcut. That's not the way back to headquarters. Joe, you know that, and I know that, but the general doesn't know it. At least he won't for about an hour and a half. That sergeant will be a private in the morning. Yes, isn't he lucky?
No, not for his pay.
It's like I said, we do get a good intro here. Right. And that's like I said, I this is a really good intro to Waverly. I just like said, I like him as a character. Like you get the impression that he is kind of no nonsense when he has to be, but that he actually respects. Well, he actually respects his men, and he actually cares for their well-being.
Well,
and
they wouldn't love him so much, and they wouldn't throw together this because we had a pretty slam bang finish cooked up for him. All that stuff. They wouldn't feel that way if he wasn't a good person who could inspire loyalty genuinely. And not every general, not every leader in general can do that. But he certainly knew how to do that. It reflects on him very nicely. Before we go too much further, we need to stress that Dean Jagger plays General Waverly. He won Best Supporting Actor in 1949 for 12 O'Clock High, which was actually my dad's favorite movie, war film, and a good one. But he definitely brings a gravitas to that role, even though it's not really a serious war film or anything, but it definitely touches on that that generation, that feeling, everything like that. But he does a great job of grounding it in that period that I think people would have been all too familiar with. And that does lead us into that first appearance of White Christmas, which
while we're talking about the general himself, why don't we go ahead and cover the character as we go. So with the general, you have two phases of him. You have him during the war, and you have him post-war as a retiree, really wanting to get back. And as you said, he shows that power with the troops by that end, drawing so many people back at the end.
Right.
Which also culminates in the same song of "We'll Follow the Old Man" at the
right. And I think also, I think one of the reasons why I like that song Dane, you had Dane. You had I'm thinking Dean Jagger. Dane, you had a good point when you said that most of the songs do have a nostalgic vibe to them.
Yeah.
Most and both of these definitely. White Christmas absolutely is pure nostalgia.
Yeah.
But We'll Follow the Old Man. It's there is a sense of nostalgia, I think, for the heroes of the war, the sense that people who fought and served deserved better than what they got, and whatever, that kind of runs throughout the movie, and especially with the general.
Yeah.
But there's also an undercurrent, kind of a snarky undercurrent, and you definitely see that in We'll Follow the Old Man, because like I said, as long as he wants to go opposite to the foe, it's like we will happily follow him wherever he wants to stray, as long as it's away from the battle fray.
Yeah.
It's very there's sort of a snarky. Yes, we have a nostalgia for this, but we also really don't really want to go back to.
Yeah, but it fits his character though, because he is kind of that right blend of sentimental but also crusty enough to be a general in the first place. And it fits his character very nicely, and it shows that they know him very well. But the White Christmas, that instance of it when we first hear it, just with a music box and nothing else besides Bing Crosby singing. So that was the first Christmas song I ever heard, and it remains my favorite Christmas song of all time, and my favorite version of that song, because all that they have is a music box. They're in a war zone in, one of the worst wars in world history, World War II, obviously, if not the worst war. But it's and they're in the middle of an advanced area. There's bombs going off in the background, and it's like that's like the one. It's generally a pretty light movie, but like that moment, I think, kind of really grounds it, because that is ultimately, I think, what Christmas is about. It's the idea of hope in the midst of darkness, and remembering better times, and remembering kind of what is really important in life. And no better place is that needed than on an advanced area like that on the front lines. But I think that's a good moment of really grounding the movie, and it's the fact that it's so minimalistic, it really brings it home, I think. And it sets the tone very well.
So does anybody else have anything that they'd like to talk about when it comes to the general himself as a character, or the opening numbers?
Yeah, I do. I like the opening numbers. The White Christmas, I like that version, but I like the later version better. The more entertaining. And the general himself, I thought he seemed like a really good guy. I mean, at first he's like pretend to agree with the other generals. Oh yes, we cannot have Christmas in the army, and then he goes and tells the guy to basically get him lost, get rid of him. And so I thought, right there, he probably could have gotten in trouble for that, not just the driver, but he didn't care. He just he did that, and then he went and watched his men, singing up there and pretending to be a little mad at first, and then joins in on it. Just definitely can tell how everybody could care for him and love him.
Likes this guy, yeah.
He's just really charismatic guy, and yes, he's in charge and everything, but he's one of the guys as well. Not just the person in charge. So it was a good blend between being the person in charge and one of the guys that I really enjoyed about the character.
And a lot of that nostalgic feeling that he has, that yearning that you can even feel here, follows the character throughout the movie.
Oh yeah.
During and after the war, and that's a great thing when a character can stay consistent like that, and you can follow it the whole way.
There's also a lot of bookends between this scene and the end scene. There's a lot of callbacks, and one of the kind of one of almost a throwaway one, but it's kind of a fun one, is that both times when he addresses Danny Kaye's character, Phil, he just like, at ease, Sergeant. And Phil just stays at attention, like absolutely just oh, thank you, sir. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
it is funny.
Yeah.
Danny Cage is hilarious. You know, I would wonder how much he had lived through this.
Well,
Movie.
funny you mentioned that, because out of all the people doing the ad-libbing, it was actually Bing Crosby, according to the Rosemary Clooney commentary. Some of those more 50s lingo-ish lines that he gives, like, you know, I got no squawks, no beef, the kid played a percentage and we're here. Let's not make a whole big mishmash out of it, huh? Those were all him, because apparently that was how he really talked. And just some of those things that make you perk up your ears and like, who talks like this? Well, apparently he did.
He sounds almost like he's in a 40s gangster film for a few of the lines.
Well, I mean,
He did kind of grow up in that era.
Yeah,
Right.
he's definitely
I mean, he
a
was
product
in
of
his
that
50s and-
generation.
He's kind of an unsung Rat Pack member, so.
Yeah, he's
He
definitely
was-
of that
Right.
generation. So
He was
you
too pristine to be a member of the Rat Pack.
Yeah, that's
but
for sure.
yeah, he was in his 50s during this film, which I felt like interesting because he and Danny Kaye were both pretty old during this film. Danny Kaye was middle-aged, and and Bing Crosby was in his 50s.
And
which is-
neither of them had worked together before. Originally, this was supposed to be Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire back
Right.
together after having done Holiday Inn and a few other things together. So
Thank goodness for Danny Kaye coming in on it. I think the movie wouldn't be the same without him.
Oh,
He's-
when Danny
he's-
Cage is way too funny.
he's incredible.
I really like Danny Kaye. Like I first saw him in something called The Court Jester, and so that's how I know about him and
Yeah.
recognized him. And he really made this movie really enjoyable. Like his character was so good.
He's a
And
great
I can't
character.
imagine anybody else really bringing that kind of life to this movie.
Actually, here's a weird. We're talking about the ages of the characters. Here's, they all refer to Waverly as the old man.
Because they're both the same age as
Bing Crosby was actually about 6 months older or 7 months older than Dean Jagger.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought they looked close to the same age. Danny Cage definitely looked a little
Right.
younger, but
They did a fair job with the makeup to make it look a
It
little
feels like the
different. But,
general's hair was like spray painted white though. Like especially the version that we saw the other night, I was like, did they? I had never noticed it before, but I'm like, with the upcycled version of we watched 4K, right?
we watched the Blu-ray.
The Blu-ray, okay. So it looked like they had spray painted the general's hair white. You could see the wrinkles on the supposedly younger sister's forehead. I was like, yeah, this is there's a little bit older than you think.
Yeah, it is funny
Right.
that Vera Ellen, who's playing the younger sister, is actually older than Rosemary.
yeah, I was gonna say
Well,
the younger sister definitely looked older than the older sister.
And for many years, I thought it was the Andrews sisters that was in this movie. It is so. When I saw that it wasn't the Andrews sisters, I was like, huh, okay.
No, Betty was the aunt of your favorite of all the actors.
Well, let's go ahead and move forward. So we, of course, meet our heroes, Bob Wallace and Phil Davis, played by Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye. As they talk together, a building falls, and Phil, I should say, takes the brunt of the damage, and in owing it to him, they get together as a duo. And after the war, they strike it big, leading to a beautiful scene in the dressing room where they talk about the future and how they have two different basic concepts of what they would like to see as the future in the group.
That whole scene in the dressing room is one of the best comedic scenes I've ever seen in any movie, just because of how they rehearsed that quite a few times, but it's just so well written. They don't write scenes like that anymore.
And I carved out this chunk particularly because, to me, from that point to the end of the dressing room scene, it is really a perfect display of both characters. So, what are y'all's thoughts of? Let's just start with Bob Wallace, the Big Bing himself, the great white old man.
Well, I mean, if you were in New York, so you'd have to pay $6.60 or even $8.80 to see a great performer like Captain Wallace, sir.
Right.
Cheap prices.
But what did y'all
Yeah.
think of him as a character?
Of course, that's like 1940s
I
dollars.
know.
So imagine
It-
that's like $50 or $60.
It'd be a lot more,
at
yeah.
least. It'd
Probably 80, honestly.
at least probably
Right.
a few $100 if I had to guess, but I don't know the exact.
Right,
percent.
which you think about, their train ticket ended up being, what was it, $92 for the both of them?
$97.
That would have been pretty
$97 for
pricey
24
in today's dollars.
Oh, I know.
But
Well, air travel wasn't nearly as common then because airlines weren't.
Right.
Planes flew in more dangerous parts of the atmosphere than they do now.
So I will agree that scene between the two of them is a great scene between them. It really does kind of help show, Wallace is a little more pragmatic. He's really thrown himself into business because it's something he's really good at and he loves it and he does want more, but he's loving where he's at and he's pragmatic enough to know that where he's at is probably not where he's going to meet the person that he wants to eventually be with. And Phil's a little more, come what may. He's the one that actually, one of the parts of that scene is he's Wallace is like, well, you're the one that pushed me into this in the first place or whatever, and he's like, well, I didn't know I was going to create a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah.
But
the best line in the entire film, my dear partner, when what's left of you gets around to what's left to be gotten, what's left to be gotten won't be worth getting whatever it is you've got left.
And then he says something, when I can get around to figuring out
what that means, I'll come up with a crushing reply.
Yeah.
They
But
make
I do
a
want to
very good duo when it comes to the speech. That back and forth is very, very solid.
Although I do want to mention one little sight gag that always amused me was when they first make the deal to do a show together. It's like, Wallace comes in, expresses his thanks for, well, I really appreciate what you did for me and all this stuff. And he's like, if I can ever do anything, because you do that, if I can ever do anything, and most people don't plan to do it. And Phil's like, well, I tell you what, I happen to have this.
Yeah.
And but then like there's this, he talks him into it, and they're all set to go, and then they shake hands. Yeah. But the whole time Phil's been nursing his arm in this sling, and he slips the arm out and shakes Wallace's hand with it, and then slips it back into the sling.
Yes.
And it's just like this quick little thing, but I just found that very amusing.
He's not above conniving and scheming.
Oh, yeah.
Never maliciously, but, that's what he says. Whenever you have something that's for my soul and ultimate happiness, there's always lurking behind it some little angle for you, and it's true. But, right. in standard, kind of rom-com mode, someone's usually scheming to get someone together, and he does it in a way that is more believable because it ultimately is for his own sanity too, because he's just getting overworked. Mm-hmm. He's like, I haven't, up until then, I haven't had 1 minute I could call my own. I want you to get married. I want you to have 9 children. If you only spent 5 minutes a day with each kid, that's 45 minutes. And I would still have time to go out and get a massage or something.
Right. Yeah, he's not asking for much, right?
Nah.
And actually, that does mention one thing that is an important part of, as far as Wallace as a character, which does lead to some friction with Betty at first, is that he does believe that everyone has, as he says, everyone has a little larceny in them. Everyone's got an angle. And it is kind of a cynical, jaded way of looking at the world. But it's not entirely, it's not entirely untrue. It's just some people don't like hearing that, I guess, and that's one of the reasons. Like I said, he initially, as you said, standard rom-com, he and Betty get off on rough footing.
Well,
Well,
for
maybe
someone with
because
his
of that.
degree of fame, like he's kind of got to
Yeah.
have that attitude too.
Well,
Yeah.
not only that, but like having an angle doesn't necessarily mean that it's malicious. It's just everybody's got a reasonable degree of self-interest in whatever way, you know.
Well, I mean, he even says, like, the problem with the White Knight is, you can fall off that horse.
Yeah.
It's hard to get back on. And that's the part of the character. He's the pragmatist. He's the straight man of the duo. Well, the obvious straight man of the duo, but it's hard to be anything but the straight man if you're paired with Danny Kaye. But anybody else have anything that they'd like to talk about when it comes to the character of Bob Wallace, Phil Davis, or any of the themes in that section?
Bing Crosby's character is very patient. Like, he doesn't seem to get really angry about anything. Like, even when he kind of loses his temper, it's very measured. He's kind of like, you did this, you idiot. Well, go fix it.
Yeah.
And that's about
Right.
the degree of anger he has. So I do kind of
Right.
like that he doesn't like completely flip out on people, even when it's honestly kind of justifiable that he should maybe do so in this circumstance.
Well, and I think that
No.
that comes from him being in an era where there is a mannerism to everything. I mean, you kind of have to not show everything in public. So it's just one of those things.
Well,
And
yeah,
another thing, he seems like he may be a taskmaster. He may be throwing himself into his work in a way that is unhealthy, as Phil points out to him. But on the other hand, for the most part, he does seem to have the respect of his crew and cast and crew. For the most part, he's actually a fairly generous boss. I think he just gets a little carried away.
well, he
Oh,
takes
yeah.
after General Waverly in that respect, and
Right.
I do think you're right, Dave, that these people are coming from the pre, TMZ era where people weren't expected to melt down, all the time. But also, I think that is kind of his nature as well, just to be a more even keel person.
Well,
But
yeah,
he does get in that.
I don't think that people exactly streetcar named desired their way through life.
Although
Yeah.
that did come before
Right.
before this film, though.
He
In all fairness.
does get in that one cutting remark though, when they've had that conversation where Phil has essentially talked him into going to Vermont with the sisters, and he just looks at the girls and he's like, let me just say, if someone ever offers to save you from a falling building, don't hesitate, don't think about it, just spit in their face.
Then spit in his eye. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
He holds
That
that
means we're going to
Vermont.
Vermont.
arm every time that he's looking for something.
Yeah,
Right.
which I mean, that is very amusing. Just that the old arm thing can still work on him after all those years, and I
He
don't know.
did
I
in
just
theory save his life.
I mean, he did. I mean, it's just funny that
How much damage the arm took really is debatable.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he said at the time it's
only
nothing
a
but a
scratch.
scratch, and it probably was just a scratch, but that's the gag. But yeah.
Would y'all? I know this is fairly a ensemble effort, but as main characters go, would y'all consider Bob Wallace the main character or the
Well,
lead actor in the film?
out of
Or
the
Bing Crosby.
two leading men, Bing Crosby was the bigger name. Although Danny Kaye was probably the newer name of the two. He was definitely not an unknown or anything. But I'd say he was more of the established star, more of like the, man's man of the two, I guess you could say. So if you had to split it up that way, I guess you'd say that. But this really is pretty evenly split among the four. And that's one of the things I like about it. He got, like boy, girl, as he says when they sit down.
Boy, girl,
Uh,
girl.
yeah, it's pretty evenly split, and the time is split up pretty evenly too. And you can very easily tell that the particular couples that are being matched here make perfect sense relative to their characterizations. Because you've got the two realistic ones, the two that are more of the scheming, conniving ones, and they get together. So they establish those dynamics very, very well.
Oh,
I was gonna say a thing about that too. Like, to me, they kind of seem like opposites at first. Like the way they didn't seem to get along, and they were kind of like opposites, but you could tell there was chemistry right off the bat.
Oscar and Felix.
Yeah, and when the other two are dancing, they're like, "Oh, look at them getting along great," but they don't know what's actually being said. It just looks like they have the greatest chemistry, so they definitely have it. And then the two schemers, they're exactly alike, but they have chemistry themselves too.
Oh
So
yeah, well,
they're both scheming
a
to get-
good touch with the direction on that front is when it's just Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney together. This was something that Michael Curtiz kind of instructed for them, is when it's just the two of them at the table, they move very slightly closer to each other. So it's a good subtle hint that they are getting closer together, even though they're having a disagreement.
Right.
So, any other thoughts as far as Bing Crosby, Danny Kaye, or any of those scenes? Forrest, Tammy, anything from y'all, or any others? All right. Well, with that, we will move on. Of course, they have to do a favor for freckle-faced Haynes, the dog-faced boy.
Which, according to Rosemary Clooney, that actor that they got to be in the
was
photo,
Alfalfa.
Yep, Alfalfa.
Yep.
And
oh, no kidding.
And he's also the same guy. I think I read he's the same guy that dunked George Bailey and everyone else in the pool in last week's movie.
You're right.
Yeah.
Really?
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing.
Well, one of my favorite lines, not from that scene, but the one right after, was, I have a recent snapshot. He always was a good-looking kid.
How it pained him to say that.
I know. You could tell he was just swallowing his words.
Oh, actually, I think one of my
bad. That was the messed up part.
I know, but
I know, but I think one of my favorite lines in the movie was Phil had a line that was something like, "How does a guy like that have the nerve to have sisters?"
Yeah. Well, even before that was Freckleface Hayes, the dog-faced boy. He's got sisters. Claims he's got them, and then how can a guy that ugly have the nerve to have sisters? Well, give me one good reason why we should spend our last 2 hours in Florida looking at the sisters at Freckleface Hayes, the dog-faced boy. Let's just say we're doing it for a pile in the army, huh? Well, it's not good, but it's a reason.
Right.
Move on into the whole scene in the nightclub in Florida. And of course, I'm just going to run through this real quick and then we'll come back for the discussion. You really have two major numbers in this, which of course you have the Sisters song, and you have the song The Best Things Happen While You're Dancing.
Right.
And
I love that guest number.
And of course, they go from that. They meet the sisters. They have to bail them out because they made the person who ran the hotel quite angry. Supposedly, it may have been a scheme, but it's hard to say who was the one scheming, considering that Vera was the one who wrote the letter that was supposedly from the brother to get them to see their act. And of course, they cover for them and help them escape by taking their place in the show. So, what are y'all's thoughts on the Haynes sisters, played by Rosemary Clooney and Vera Ellen? Again, funny that Vera Ellen is supposed to be the younger, but I swear, even when I watched this thing on VHS, she looked like the older, regardless.
I absolutely love the sisters. I thought they did such a great job. The supposed younger one, her dancing on the high heels, I thought was just incredible work. I mean, from what I've heard from a lot of women, that even walking in high heels can be difficult, and she's dancing just like.
Well, those weren't really high heels; those are kitten heels, and they are also thick kitten heels. So those are much more capable of dancing and walking in. Nowadays, the kind of high heels you might see someone dancing in are much higher and much thinner, and it's pretty much impossible unless you're freaking Beyonce or something like that.
Yeah.
She's still an amazing.
Well, I still
yeah,
thought it
totally.
was really impressive how she danced in those shoes. And everybody else was dancing just like regular shoes. And,
Right.
Well,
I mean, even if
couple,
they are a little lower, still I think it's still more impressive.
couple
Especially
in,
with the waist the size of a thimble.
couple
Oh, God.
interesting factoids about. So when we first meet them, something that my family and I pointed out was there's a particularly egregious continuity error when she's got the cup of whatever it is, tea or coffee. And well, he could have written from Alaska, but he didn't, did he? Well, he might have. Yeah, that's shot one. Then shot two, again, she's like setting it down. Shot two, it's right back in her hand, and I'm like, oh, it's pretty egregious. So there's that, and then something that I believed for years that was again we kind of dispelled the Bert and Ernie rumor last time. I have another rumor to dispel that I believed for so long. So Vera Ellen had so many of her outfits with the turtleneck feature. And there was apparently a persistent Hollywood rumor for a long time that still persists to this day that she did that to cover up like wrinkling in her neck, that she was supposedly anorexic, but other photos of the period have dispelled that, showing her neck to be normal, so it's not due to that.
Well, she was anorexic, but her neck was not damaged.
Yeah, it wasn't damaged. She was very skinny, and she did dance pretty extensively. So I'm sure that was a part of it. But I know that particular number, the Best Things Happen While You're Dancing, she and Danny Kaye rehearsed that extensively, and it shows, because I think it's,
Right.
as far as the musical / dance numbers go, that's probably my favorite, because it's the one that we replayed in my house all the time. And it's just a really impressive number. You could watch that out of context, out of the Christmas season, and it's up there with something that you might have seen in Singing in the Rain or something like that.
Right. Well, the again, one of the things that I'd read was that she actually had most of her singing dubbed, but that was definitely her dancing, and that was what she really brought more than any of the others. Was again, originally it was going to be Fred Astaire in the role, and Danny Kaye was like the third string choice, and he's a good dancer, but not on Fred Astaire's level.
Oh yeah.
But Vera Ellen, they did a good job of him complimenting her and not getting in her way.
Well, he can do a whole lot more than Bing Crosby can, because Bing Crosby he didn't really.
Crosby and Clooney were the crooners, and the other two were more the dancers. Yeah,
and they go together that way very nicely. But he can keep up with Danny Kaye can keep up with Vera Ellen better than Bing or Clooney can keep up with them.
Right.
And so as far as the rest, how about Rosemary Clooney's character? What are y'all's thoughts on her?
Mostly she's pretty good, although I do get really annoyed with the movie does suffer from someone heard something the wrong way and just totally blows it out of proportion.
And honestly, before Sundays.
Yes,
but honestly, this movie is old enough that wasn't a trope yet.
Yeah,
but
I think that's the rom-com trope. But you're right; it's before it got really, really, really bad.
Right, but I do think that it can be fairly stated that a large percentage of the conflict in about 20-minute segment of the film is entirely due to her making the wrong conclusions.
Well, was the secretary?
The housekeeper made that jump first.
And told him, but she never confronted him. She never asked him.
She didn't even talk to her sister about it.
She just assumed, she didn't tell no one. She's going to leave.
Right, and that
childish as hell.
Yeah, she broke her contract. And it's lucky that she had two bosses. Both both dang it, I'm drawing a blank now. Bill Crosby's character and the general were both
Crosby and
very
Jenny.
like understanding. But it was still, I mean, like, I like the way the general says, like, I can't help but thinking this is a tactical error. Like, that was a very tactful way of putting what she was doing. But it was like, so other than that lapse, mostly I like the character.
I thought she I also like to point out she was very beautiful at that time. Yeah.
And her performance is solid, and she did have a wonderful voice.
They just made
So,
her
yeah.
character kind of I guess a dingbat for a minute, you know. I mean, it wasn't like she was going complete idiot in the movie. Just during that scene, that part, it's like, why don't you at least talk to him or something? Why would you just you emotionally go crazy, like, or unless she was doing the whole I don't want to get close to somebody routine, and you know, leaving before she does because she obviously was having feelings, you know. That's the
Right.
only explanation you could have, that it really wasn't because he was being, you know, a dick. It was because she was falling in love with him and was scared, so she'd rather run away.
Well, she was really hurt, and she didn't want to like confront it with
Yeah.
him. Like, she just wanted to get away.
Well,
It made sense.
Yeah, I mean, she, out of the four, she was definitely my least favorite, just because she was very much the killjoy, kind of the stick in the mud, that sort of thing. That usually movies like this have to have at least one of those, because without that, then
Well,
there's no contrast. There's no
As
conflict.
her sister repeatedly said, mother hen type, and that
Yeah. Exactly. And there usually has to be at least one of those in these kinds of movies to make them work. You know, it's just, yeah, it's, to be fair, she does a good job of playing that kind of character. I do find it funny that Rosemary Clooney in the commentary, she does kind of treat it like a riff tracks in some respects, and usually she does it to herself. She kind of tears herself a new one, which is pretty funny, and her character. Which I just find that really funny. But yeah, she says a lot of what I always thought, you know, growing up, about, you know, the way that her character interacted with some things.
With that character, I will say that the only thing I give it as far as the movie in this, because to me that whole story is probably one of the most frustrating pieces of the entire movie. And main reason is, of course, that she put him on such a high horse that it was hard to reconcile anything bad with her picture of what he should be, which to me doesn't make sense why she would have had him on that high horse to begin with, because she, like Bing Crosby's character, is a pragmatist in all things, yet in that entire conflict section she's anything but pragmatic. So it's kind of it's a weird break of character, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, she does have this kind
Right.
of morally superior attitude to things, in certain ways. I mean, I get why, you know, 'cause she's trying to preserve herself and her sister, and you know, if this were a more modern movie, then you'd get into some of the darker aspects of showbiz, and you might understand even more, you know, why she's that way, trying to protect herself and her sisters from that. But given the time period, it, you know, makes her come across as a little bit more of a stick in the mud than she necessarily would be nowadays.
So what about the musical numbers? We kind of hit a little bit on the best things happen while you're dancing, but we didn't really hit any on the sisters number. And they play that multiple times
Yeah,
throughout.
both versions.
Yeah, it's a perfectly good number. It helps introduce them well. You could see how it would be sort of a central piece of their act. It's not my favorite song in the movie, but it definitely fits well.
I think they did a great job with it, but I really liked when the men did it better. I laugh at that.
Oh,
Well,
it's funny,
that-
especially Danny Kaye doing the like whole obviously trying to aggravate Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
He's smacking him with the fan, yeah.
Well, and the
The way
reason
they
why
did
he did that is because apparently Bing wasn't really down for it and was just kind of grimacing his way through it, and Danny was trying to make him crack. and the fact that he did manage to do it for real, and Bing Crosby allowed himself to crack up, thinking that they wouldn't use that take, but that's the one they ended up using, which is
Well, it makes it
which
more
is great. It's
Yeah,
great.
but-
It's great though because it's real.
Right.
You know?
It sells
it
it
is.
very well, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I'd read that was basically them just kind of goofing around, and Curtiz saw that and was like, we got to use that. I was
So,
like,
It's perfect. They did such a great job. I mean, like I said, Danny Kaye is so great. You know, I mean, he got him
mhm.
to laugh about it. You know, even though he didn't really like being, doing that number. And
so do y'all think that number could have gone over like that today, this scene? Or do you feel like it would be too offensive to modern
I
audiences?
don't think. I mean, they basically do. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of drag shows and stuff like that. So I don't see how that would be offensive. But
Well,
then
this wasn't even really drag either, because I
I
mean,
think people would enjoy it today, yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed like even
Yeah.
audiences back then enjoyed it.
yeah, I mean,
it
I
was
would. This
unheard
wasn't
of
even.
then.
It wasn't even drag really, because they weren't even in dresses or anything. They just had a few, glittery bits here and there, but it really wasn't much. It was obviously done in good fun.
Right.
No. Anybody else have anything left on these scenes or characters? Tammy, you look like you got something to say.
I like when the guys did the girls number. I thought that was one of the best parts of the movie because it just was so fun,
I agree.
and it brought the fun. It brought fun to it. You could tell like you said that
Absolutely.
they were trying to have fun doing it, and the other dance scene that you were talking about, what I thought was very well done too. I mean, you could sit there and watch that dance scene again because they put so much into it, but they made it look so effortless. They did such a good
Right.
job.
The only thing that stuck out to me this viewing that never clicked in my brain all the times I've seen it. So the sheriff comes there with a warrant to arrest the Haynes sisters for something that it seems like it's some kind of scheme on behalf of the landlord. I don't really know. So it's
Right.
a minor
Yeah,
offense.
they owe
You owe
$200 or something like that,
It's a minor thing
and they
that
have
could
to leave.
Yeah, well that's what I'm saying. Like to be fair, it's a minor thing that could probably be taken care of pretty quickly. The thing that I realized though is that the girls are technically resisting arrest.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're aiding and abetting, so I'm like, wouldn't that's something that never gets brought up again.
Which is why they ran out of there too.
Yeah, but I'm like, and they're not exactly, strangers or anything. Like people know who
Right.
they are. Now, granted, they could probably pay to make it go away, but I'm just like,
Right.
that part never clicked in my brain this time.
Now
Well, if it's a scam, and the landlord
Yeah.
is like, "Oh, these guys are involved now," if they're involved, people are going to start, looking closer at it. And if it's a scam, it's going to be figured out that it's a scam. So
Might
he
be
might as
true,
well
yeah.
just drop the entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
not.
that's what I assume happened.
I assume so too. Like it seems like such a minor thing that could go away, pretty easily. That was just something I was like, geez, because I didn't, as a kid, I obviously didn't know about like, so and so makes up a story about this and that, and then you have to pay them off, or paparazzi, or real things that they did that they get a fixer to make go away or whatever. I didn't know anything about that, so it didn't click in my brain. Now I know about that stuff, and I'm like, oh, what category would that go in? Even back then, but even
Right.
back then, let alone today,
Well,
Right.
Wallace was just gonna pay. He's like, why don't we just pay him the $200?
Yeah.
And he, Danny Kaye's character just like, no, we'll
Yeah. Don't reward that behavior, basically.
Yeah.
And we did talk before about pricing. $200 back then went a lot further than
Well,
it does
and
today.
that's-
But
Oh
And
yeah,
that's all
I do-
assuming that the sisters
like-
didn't do the damage,
Right.
because you never know.
you never know.
yeah.
You
You take them on their word for it. Yeah.
Mhm.
But Forrest, I noticed that you had your mic off.
Okay.
Did you have something you wanted to say on these scenes? Oh, never mind.
No, sorry.
Well, I did want to mention one thing real quick about the best things happen when we're dancing. Two things. One is that for me, I love musicals. I do enjoy them more than I used to think I would. But I've never been a big fan of extended dance sequences. And I feel like in this movie is a good example of there are 3 points in the film where it threatens to grind to the halt just because of an extended dance sequence. This one of the 3 is the one that I think is the most fitting and most earned, and I don't mind it. The other 2 I have problems with. This one I don't mind. And another thing, I don't know if anyone would disagree with me on this. Let me know what y'all's take is, but this was something I never thought of before. This song, it does start off with Danny Kaye and Vera, with Judy and Phil singing to each other, but then you get a background chorus singing as they're dancing. This is one of the very few musical numbers in the film, and it may be the only one other than the Count Your Blessings, instead of sheep number. Maybe I'm missing one other.
Well, I know what you're getting
that are
at,
not
though.
specifically a performance.
Yeah, those ones are not. They're spontaneous. The other ones are set up in the scene.
Almost all of them are performances as part of a show or as something. And so that's kind of interesting that they slipped just a couple of songs in that didn't fit the mold, but they also don't necessarily stick out like sore thumbs either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't really think about them as much, but that is a good point.
So one thing that I know that my parents always had a problem with as we went by. They said, why are they getting a taxi in the middle? How are these taxis just like coming here in the middle of the alley?
Rosemary Clooney,
right up to the window.
Rosemary Clooney made fun of that in the commentary, actually.
So I figured
where
it out.
Are they? They're in New York. So there's always a New York taxi.
But they were
not in Florida in the alley,
Yeah, they were in Florida and they were in the alley. I used to drive a cab. Let me tell you,
I had figured it out beforehand.
Okay.
I did find out the answer after years of being like, why? Is that they had actually called ahead for the taxis to meet both the sisters and them there. So they were specifically called, and you can actually see it, but you have to pay attention. You have to pay like really good attention.
Right, but still the fact that they come right up the alley to the window is interesting.
Well, yeah, it's just like calling an Uber these days. You call ahead of time.
You can call.
I remember them calling.
Cabs, you can always call cabs ahead of time, long for it was an Uber.
I remember when they called for the one for the girls that they said pull up in the alley.
Yeah,
I remember them being called. That one being called.
Yeah, I remember that one being called too. I don't remember them calling for themselves at all. Just all of a sudden there was another cab that showed up.
They
yelled. No. As a matter of fact, they yelled taxi, and he pulled up like he was sitting there. But no cab's gonna sit in an alleyway.
And you never know. Apparently that alleyway gets a lot of business.
I'll tell you, I used to drive a cab, and I don't care what. No cab driver is gonna sit in an alleyway because it's dangerous.
But,
and even in the 50s, I'm sure it was more dangerous.
But before we move on to the train, any other thoughts on these scenes? All right. Well, so of course we hit the train, and of course Danny Kaye gave the tickets away to the sisters, and
gave him credit.
And so Bing Crosby is a little bit sore about that, and they have to buy tickets sitting up all night in the club car. And of course he's like, we should go to Vermont instead of New York. And he's like, why? And he's like, well, all that snow.
The fir trees and the great change of pace, just what we need.
But they end up finding out that, of course, the Haynes sisters have their drawing rooms, and they meet up. And they do decide, okay, we'll go to Vermont and check things out there. And this has the musical number Snow. You were talking about musical numbers that weren't just a performance, Jacob. This is one of those.
That is true, yes.
one of my favorites, actually. I don't know. It has so much energy and almost fun to it, predicting a nice snowy Christmas, which I didn't have that on this side of the line. Some of y'all might.
Nope.
Some of y'all live in
Nope, no
cold
snow
climate.
here.
Not this
Well,
year.
that's part of what I love so much about this film is that it does kind of communicate something that I never really had, except for like when I was really, really little and we lived in Minnesota, where you have a lot of snow up there. But like, yeah, I was like maybe 4 or 5 at the time, and then I lived in California, and then in here, North Carolina, where it doesn't really snow on Christmas. So it's like that kind of wanting there to be a white Christmas that always really stuck in my head for this
It's
film
only
in
been a
general.
handful in my lifetime.
Mine too.
Well, and especially with that song "Snow," it's all about that.
It's kind of funny that it's White Christmas, and I watched it today because today was the only day that it snowed here for maybe like 3 months. Like, this is the first day it snowed all winter that I can remember.
Mhm.
And it's already all melted, of course, but
Yeah.
That's all right.
Aw.
There's winter remaining,
no, don't remind me.
but
Oh,
not
so,
not
yeah.
pretty white Christmassy winter. So
You know,
Yeah, I'm
Dustin,
not a
it
big
could have
fan
been
of
it could have been
snow.
what we had it here, which was like 70 degrees on Christmas Day.
Oh, I would have killed people for that.
I'm not a huge fan of snow on
It was
Christmas.
nice.
It's not. It doesn't feel like Christmas if there's no snow, and there
Yeah.
wasn't snow in here, so it just. I don't know. It's always felt like Christmas when there's snow, but when there's no snow, it doesn't really feel like it is.
well, as
know.
the song says,
Right.
Which what
True.
did y'all think of these scenes? Because it's kind of there that they finally do hook up as a team, as a foursome. They kind of meet in the last scene, but they really do hook up officially in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
Forced hook up
Um,
by a couple members,
right.
but yeah, it is great. That snow song I really enjoy because you don't quite know if they're gonna be like like a foursome or whatever until they all sing it together, and that's the first time they all sing together, and it really hung together. It really sounded really good, and really sounded like something that just came out of nowhere, not something that they rehearsed. So it's definitely great. They all got involved and they all sang and they all enjoyed it and they all realized, hey, we got something here. Obviously, the two guys have the, big act. They're big Broadway hit and stuff. And the two girls, they do small clothes and stuff. So they're still just trying to get their wings. But
Here's a weird lyric for you. I love that song, but a weird lyric that my family and I also pointed out from having watched it so many times was, "I want to wash my hands, my face, and hair with snow." That is gotta
Right.
I noticed that too, and it was like, what?
that cannot be fun. It just
No, wait.
can't.
It depends. It depends. Like, I'll be honest. Okay, I worked for a long time. Well, I still technically work for a nursery, where I've had to deal with slinging Christmas trees and stuff, sometimes in very wintry weather. And when you're outdoors doing outdoorsy stuff, snow is great for washing your hands. It really can be helpful to have that. It's
What
not
about your
great
hair?
when you. Oh, it's it.
What about your hair? Have you been doing
I'm not
that?
so sure about washing my hair in it. That
I
might
don't
be a
think
little
washing
much.
hair
But
would be
Possibility.
But you are right. It is good for washing hands. Just don't eat the yellow snow either.
yeah, you don't want to use the colored snow, like the yellow or the brown. That can be pretty nasty too. You don't want to use that. But if it's nice white snow, it's nice. It can be very good. But yeah, the whole washing your hair thing, that's a little much. That's a little
I'm
yeah.
surprised they didn't say want to build a home in it, because the eagles, I mean, everyone thinks of snow as cold, but when you build like a snow fort, or it actually gets pretty warm.
Didn't one of them make when they get off the train? I think one of them made an igloo crack or something like that. Like they must make them with
They must have snow covered, grass covered
Right.
grass-covered igloos
Grass
up here.
covered.
Yeah, he did make it. There was no snow when they got there. They thought there was, still in Florida or something.
Right.
Like,
North Carolina.
like, are we
yeah.
really in Vermont?
Yeah. Are you sure this is Vermont? No, this must be southern Vermont.
I mean,
I actually love the old
Right.
train
I
that they
saw
had.
people-
Oh
I
man,
was
did anybody catch that joke? I mean, I think it's a little bit later, but I just want to be sure that I don't forget to mention it.
Yeah, I know which
Like,
one you're gonna say.
How would we lure people to Vermont? It's like we could say there's a Democrat here, and it's like,
Yeah.
Oh, I caught that a lot.
my God.
Or it's just it's
I
funny.
watched that one.
Well, that's funny
Well-
because, like, again, the definitions of what a Democrat or a Republican even were at the time are not the same as they are today. Plus,
Nope.
like,
I know they are, but at the same
but
time,
but the population shifts are different too, because the South used to be much more heavily Democratic, specifically Southern Democratic, and it used to be more conservative then. And then Republicans were more New England, and then just the demographics have shifted so much since the 50s.
Prior to Nixon,
Right.
so
Yeah.
this is more during Eisenhower time, which
Yeah.
Eisenhower very different from any current.
Totally different.
But
hmm
the whole of it, to me, I liked how they took the napkin there and had little things there to make it
Yeah.
come out with that, and the coordination between the four. Did anybody else have anything else to say about the train scene?
Well, I'm trying to think. So I really do love the shot where they kind of miniaturize the snow-covered hill there. It's pretty
Yeah.
creative. But I do like the hot buttered rum, light on the butter, which that was another Bing Crosby ad lib. I think most of his lines were ad libbed, just because that was the way he talked.
Actually, hot buttered rum sounds like a really tasty thing, but
It is good.
His sayings were a little weird, but they all sounded cool. Like when he said it, it did sound cool. So it's nice to know that he had lived that, because I did notice how this sounded cool. They weren't something you normally hear.
Yeah,
So-
apparently that's the way he really talked. And then several scenes later, when he goes, "Whoa, whoa, 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 time, cut." According to Rosemary Clooney, he would say that all the time, just in
Nice.
conversation. I do little personal note when they are looking out the train window and they see it's all green and they say, "Must be Carolina." That stuck out in my mind when we watched that, like, just before we moved to North Carolina. It was like, oh, hey, look at that. It's personal now. Yeah,
Right.
because we did the cross-country move from California to North Carolina. And, I was like, oh, look at that. That line has extra meaning now.
well, so moving on to the plot, we take a little break from the new musical numbers for a little while, as we arrive in Vermont, and definitely no snow. As a matter of fact, they seem to be having a winter much like the winter that we're having here in
Right. Yes.
And
I'll say just
They,
like one needs to know.
Well, it was a pretty warm Christmas in North Carolina, that's for sure.
so
Mhm.
they get there to the hotel where the sisters are going to perform. They find out that General Waverly actually runs the hotel. We introduce two new characters, Emma Allen, or as my father would know her, that bitch. Pardon the language, but that's how he would
Jeez.
always refer to her.
She
And,
was a great character. She had
was.
she
Yeah.
had some of the
was.
best. She had some of the best one-liners in the whole thing.
Then, of course, Anne Whitfield as Susan Waverly. Of course, we find out the general had sunk everything into this ski resort, and now they're going belly up because, well, no snow. Skiing makes it a little bit harder, especially since this is prior to snow machines.
Mm-hmm.
And they are trying to figure out a way to save this. General is thinking about even trying to give it all up and go back into the army, but can't quite get there. And that's when they hatch that plan. We'll bring our show over here, do all the practice here, and put on a show and try and draw the people in.
Mhm.
That's a lot to cover, but I figure it's good to cover the basics of it. But we'll come and dissect some of that, and the two new characters. Though really, truly, Suzanne Waverly doesn't really do much.
She really doesn't.
gets him into his uniform. That's about it.
Yeah.
Mary Wicks as Emma Allen is probably the more prominent character introduced.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah. Well, she is, after all, as she refers to herself later on, the president of the New England chapter of Busybodies Anonymous.
Yeah.
He's kind of what starts Betty off on her
Right.
whole
Yeah.
rom-com misunderstanding thing.
But
I like
first,
the character, but yeah, she definitely
yeah,
goofed up big time there and assumed what she heard because she only heard part of the conversation. And so I don't think she's a malicious character. Nothing was done intentionally or anything. She seems to be very nice, just the opposite, and she really cares for the inn.
She's a very hard charging character who doesn't, like, if she gets an idea in her head, she oftentimes doesn't stop to think about whether it's really the right idea. And like when we first meet her, it's like she comes up to sign everyone up for their rooms, and the sisters are like, "Oh, well, we're here. We're the act. We're the Haynes sisters," and she basically fires them before the general walks in and sets things to right. He basically is like, nonsense. We hired them for a job. We will honor the contract. And. But before that, we have that fun little bit where Bob and Phil mistake him for the janitor.
Last person that they expected to see.
Yes, the last person, absolutely.
General Waverly, a janitor.
It's worse than that.
I own this hotel.
I really did like the one line where she said, "There's any room available, even mine." When she thought they were just guests, the women.
Right.
It was just really funny. You caught that she said even mine. Like, that they're so desperate for business that she's gonna give up her own room if they want that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things I know, my father always hated her guts for what she did, and the only thing, because she kind of sets off the rift between.
But it wasn't maliciously. It was an accident.
You have to wonder too, like, given the fact this woman, she even freely admits that she's a busybody. You have to wonder, like, how many times have there been someone's had a falling out because she misinterpreted something and then told the general something wrong or whatever. Like, I really wonder why is his resort failing? Could it be that she may have ran her goddamn mouth too many times?
Right, like how many people called to inquire about the weather conditions, and she just made it sound much worse than it was.
Yeah, well, but she does come in handy for when they need to keep the general away from the television set.
She's not all bad, and Rosemary Clooney's character does the majority of the heavy lifting on her tsundere self, but. Emma Allen, the character, she does one thing that I do find kind of unforgivable on it is the fact that, yes, she sets that whole thing in motion and doesn't lift a single finger to clear it up.
Right.
She just treats it like, oh, I was wrong, whatever, and move on.
Right.
Not to mention, you get the telephone effect thing where she... where two things that she does with that. One is that she attributes something that was clearly Ed Harris, not Ed Harrison. What am I trying to say?
Well, that was the character's name, but he's meant.
Oh, it was, yeah, Ed Harrison. They clearly him speaking, but she said that it was Bob Wallace speaking. And then the other thing was where Harrison had said that it would be worth $100,000 in free advertising, and she doubled it.
Yeah. That's a good representation, though, of what happens when people hear things secondhand. They tend to inflate the truth, and
Yeah.
happens a lot.
So as far as the actual setup itself, and again, it's a lot of stuff to cover because we're talking about all of the setup with them meeting the general again, and even where he's out playing the horseshoes and trying to get back into the army, and they refuse him because you too old. um, but of course, the general reflects a lot of that, a lot of the same personality traits he does at the beginning, kind of that sad, melancholy feel that he has, waxing nostalgic about his youth. Even in the World War II scene, he's kind of waxing nostalgic about it because he's moving up, he's moving out, and in a way, the same thing. He's moving out, and he can't really get back to where he was. Um, but what did y'all think in general of the whole setup and then solution that they came up with?
Well, I mean, it's them using their talents for a good purpose, for paying him back, for everything that he gave them. And it wasn't just them, as we know, because even Ed Harrison himself was saying, "Without him, I wouldn't know how to peel a potato." And
Right.
a lot of people, he changed the lives of quite a few people, at least, in the New England area alone, let alone countrywide. But it's what's cool about what all they do there is they do get to. Because objectively, what they're saying there is they have that whole thing about how the ski lodge was an ideal place for rehearsal. He's like, we've established the fact that the lodge is ideal, and
Right.
so they have a halfway decent guys for it because a lot of big shows, Broadway shows, they will do tests in smaller markets
Well,
to workshop them.
and it had to be expensive to bring the whole show to Vermont.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
most
Like
definitely.
wow.
Well, how
I
much
mean,
is well?
and
How
that's
much
a
is
great
well?
that's a grand gesture, especially in that
Right.
time and age.
Oh yeah. Well,
The
it's kind of amazing that they could pull that many strings, in the pre-internet age to get them up there, in that
right.
short a notice.
Well, also in the pre-internet age, or yeah, well, actually, this is like pre-cable, pre-network television age. This is
Well,
like
no, it was
the Ed
Well,
Harrison
actually,
show.
it was network
actually,
television.
Oh,
he
yeah.
did he did
Well,
have a
no, no,
connection
no.
to
I
Ed
say
Harris.
when I say pre-network television, I mean like there were basically like 2 or 3 options.
Yeah.
You basically Ed Harrison was
Well,
television,
and
and
Harrison
you know,
does relevant, so yeah.
yeah. So basically, it would have been a little easier to use TV to that advantage than it would have been at almost any point afterwards,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
just because people would have been tuned into that show.
Yeah.
Everybody
And I
watched
will
that
admit that
show.
one of the good things about their ruse is that it's not entirely a ruse.
Yeah.
Now they Ellen got it wrong. She thought that they were, or Emma got it wrong. She thought that they were going to piggyback off of the old man's misery and try to and that was the whole conflict there. But the idea, what Ed Harrison had to say was true, that this was worth a lot of free publicity for all 3 acts, for the for Wallace and Davis, for the Haynes sisters, and for the Ed Harrison show, for that matter. But the ruse that they had in mind was that it would give them a chance to test out new, as they said, we'll use you and your guests as guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And that was a ruse, but it was also a legitimate thing. They were giving a good opportunity to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. So it wasn't like purely altruistic, but it also was not a lie either. They were able to do this grand gesture while getting that angle that Wallace always talks about.
And again, real Broadway shows do that when they're
Right.
workshopping. They do it in a smaller market before
Right.
it goes to Broadway.
And the whole thing, and the thing that really was the using, and this is the whole base of it, where the misunderstanding comes from. is that with Ed Harris suggesting to televise it and use the whole "we're doing a favor to the old man"
Right.
as
Lots of schmaltz.
as the thing, and that way on national TV it embarrasses him nationally. Which, of course, they said no, not at all. Which, of course, she hung up before that. But
Right.
that's the reason why it gets dropped. And yeah, that would have been very wrong to do.
Now, one thing that I don't think I ever thought about, but I did think about it this time, was that Emma hangs up the phone when Susan walks by. And I'm pretty sure Susan knows how things work. And I was kind of, when I thought about it, I was like, I'm kind of surprised she did that. They probably did that as a plot contrivance to make sure that, that she missed the important part of, the punchline of the statement. But if you think about it, would she have really felt the need to hang up at that moment?
I guess she's trying to pretend like she's, doing something. But does anybody else have... Oh, one thing I thought about, I had forgotten that one of my favorite jokes happens at the beginning where they're talking about like, Vermont, all that underwear, and it's like, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to return the electric blanket.
Where'd you have that? Under the underwear.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, we got a nice tan.
So some funny things there, and seeing the wood, like the old car with the wood paneling. I mean, that's just something that's kind of way out of date these days, but it's still fun to see. But does anybody else have anything that they want to talk about with this section of the film?
Well, how much is wow?
It's right in is that sound.
It's right in between ouch and boing. Wow.
Who's crunching?
Right.
I know somebody thinks it's cool to just eat a bag of chips like on top of their mic.
I always eat a bag of chips every show on night, and it's always fun because it sounds like it's snowing outside. But we're gonna move on.
Okay.
So let's move on to the actual. We start seeing some of the show numbers, which I know one of at least Jacob's favorite numbers, the minstrel show, which leads into Mandy, which I know that you said before how essential you feel both of those numbers were to the plot of the show. But I did want to add something else before we move on to that.
Sure.
That particular musical number. We'll just talk about that and move on. But there's another actor, John Brescia. I probably mispronouncing his name, but Dane can correct me. I'm sure he knows the proper.
I think it's Brascia or something like that.
I'm going to guess Brascia.
But and they even gave him a name, John.
Yeah, I think it's Brascia.
I think from what I understand, I think he was brought in to kind of help fill the void of Astaire not being there.
And he is an excellent dancer.
He is.
Dancer, yeah.
And I do want to make sure that he's pointed out because he does a lot of scene carrying in these musical scenes, and I do want to make sure that he is brought out.
The way that he and Vera Allen, like, their chemistry, their dance chemistry is amazing. They're perfectly paired together. Now, mind you, when she had her dance number with Danny Kaye, that was amazing as well. Don't get me wrong. But when she was paired with the John Brascia guy, oh my God. Like, I couldn't take my eyes off of them as a couple.
Yeah.
And when you've got a minstrel show, despite the slightly problematic aspect, and keep in mind, 90% of the people who were in this probably started in minstrel shows. But the fact that, Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye play off each other very well. In that
It's a great number. You speak about the nostalgic aspects of it. It's one of those things where, as horrific as the blackface aspects of minstrelsy was, the idea behind, at least musically, I think the idea behind a lot of it was to take some of these higher brow pieces and to introduce them to the American public at large. So, like it or not, that was a big part of American popular theater for a lot of like the 1800s and early 1900s. As with many things in America, was born on the backs of, making fun of and exploiting Black people, obviously.
You never know what a minstrel show really
Well-
was by the song.
Right.
Thankfully.
Now,
I didn't. It didn't click in my brain when I was a kid.
I will admit, a couple things about this. One,
Unless you watched Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what I was gonna say. This could have been a lot worse. In that
One
respect.
thing that this part actually reminds me of a little bit, one movie that I thought was thoroughly underrated was A Prairie Home Companion. And you had the part with Woody Harrelson and John C. Reilly as the singing cowboys, and they do the song Bad Jokes. And this one reminded me a lot of that number, of like just the bad jokes that they're amusing, and it does make for an interesting counterpoint to Mandy. But the biggest issue, other than the evoking of the minstrel show, which is a little awkward and dated,
A little.
is the fact that combined number, that one and Mandy combined, is a friggin' long number.
Mhm.
And that, and in which Mandy in particular has very extended dance sequences to it.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, you have choreography, which does make me smile. I like choreography, what it has to say, but it's also a longish number with a lot of dancing.
Mhm.
And to me, the films of this era, the 40s, 50s, 60s, the musicals, when you get into too much dancing, the film can grind to a halt.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I really think this film did not need both of those pieces. They could have cut choreography and maybe made the other two work. They could have cut minstrel show and Mandy and kept choreography, and it might have worked. Although Mandy fits better than choreography does, I think, overall. But they really did not need all three numbers. That was too much.
Well, you're also in their
Yeah.
defense. You are also looking at it from the perspective of the time period that you're in. Obviously, 21st century.
Well, yeah, I mean,
where-
my own personal taste.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Came
that's
here for the
and that
musical numbers,
and that too.
really.
But that's the other thing I'm trying to get at. So this,
People
This-
loved dance numbers back at this time.
Well,
and
not
it was
only that-
entertaining to them.
not
Right.
only that, but think about it also. So this is big movie, lots of stars, color film, VistaVision, brand new technology. Hollywood's trying to compete with
Mhm.
television, trying to do something that television can't do. Television couldn't have pulled off something like that at the time. So it was
Oh, yeah.
basically the
Right.
Mandy
it
was a spectacular piece. It was
yeah.
The choreography.
Well, that's
Oh yeah, definitely.
that's what
I
I'm
don't
getting.
know. I grew up with a lot of people that were dancers, and not one of them can I think of off the top of my head they could pull off that number and still maintain a smile on their faces the way that she has during like the way
Right.
that she looks at the camera and still smiling while you could tell she is trying to stay not pass out because she's out of breath.
Yeah.
Right.
not only that, but you're looking at all of the props, all of the background dancers,
Mhm.
all of the colors.
Yes.
Everything is perfectly
And
in sync.
it is an
Yeah.
amazing piece if you think about it. To me, it's one of the most impressive pieces. If you're looking at just ensemble, that piece really is huge.
You have
Yeah.
professional dancers to this day
Yeah.
that can't do that. If you look at the court of ballet of any ballet company during Swan Lake, and you look at the swan dance when they're all like dun 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 like that, and you can
Right.
see there's always that one or two girls that's always off, and I'm like, you're professional ballet dancers, and I feel like even they couldn't do this.
Well, that was
you're
the whole crux of Black Swan, was how freaking difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very difficult. It's like 5 or 6 girls trying to be completely perfectly in sync. And I feel like these are people that are professional ballet dancers with American Ballet Theater or New York Ballet, and they could, if you were to try to give them this choreography, I feel like they couldn't do it.
Nah, well, that's kind of part of where I was getting at is that because they had to do stuff that television couldn't do, these are like their big showpieces, and it's kind of like last decade, what was the thing that dominated was IMAX and 3D because television couldn't deliver that. But here, because of that need, you get a golden age of music writing and of dancing and singing, and they do it in such a way that modern people, because it's not emphasized so much, that they can't possibly replicate the work that they did, in terms of just the style, the hard work, the ability to do it with a smile. Something that Seth MacFarlane apparently was taught when he was doing theater and dance and emulating Sinatra and stuff was that a lesson that he learned was to smile while you sing, because it opens you up and it helps with the performance and everything. And he's very much rooted in that.
Even reflects in Family Guy of all places.
I know.
A Family Guy.
I know, Dane,
and most of the time, but still.
I know, Dane, you don't like the show, but the musical numbers in that are solid.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I really don't like Family Guy, but there are certain things about it that and Seth himself, who I think he's more tolerable if you just talk to him. He can be an intelligent person, all that, but I will always respect that he tries to keep like traditional pop alive, tries to keep old school musicals alive.
It's really funny that you say that too, Dane, because like I feel like those dance numbers, they still do reflect in that whole way of that whole style still reflects in everything in our lives to this day. Very minimal ways, but they do. Back when I used to do pageants many moons ago, we had a pageant coach that if any of us were doing a talent that involved singing or dancing or whatever, the pageant coach would always quote stuff about Fosse, Helen Sheen, Fred Astaire, or Danny Kaye.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I knew who Fred Astaire was. I had heard the name Danny Kaye. I knew who Bob Fosse was, but I was just like, and I knew who Helen Sheen was. But like, I was like, you're bringing up White Christmas a lot. I've never seen that before. Like, what do you want me to do here? Okay, I can dance. I know how to dance, dude. And he was a very, very super effeminate gay man. And there was a woman that worked with him, and she was just bitchy. And those two, I swear to God, this film, they brought it up a lot.
That's good.
That's classic Hollywood, because almost everybody, and that's one of the major differences, is there are some people who are really good at all things. But in old Hollywood, everybody had to have a base in dance, in singing, in acting. Yep. The Three Stooges, they knew how to sing, they knew how to dance, they knew how to act. Maybe not well, but they did know how to. And the Marx Brothers, which we will be covering in March.
Right.
Yeah. Run. So it is something that
you had Harpo's like a master of physical comedy, but he could also play the harp, which is not an easy instrument.
And the actor can sing. The actor could sing. He's not alive, but he could sing.
Right.
I mean, there is a sort of nostalgia for that old Hollywood look. The old studio system where studios were individuals and they weren't owned by conglomerates. Where you had actors who were signed to a certain studio for X amount of pictures or for just a full-on contract, where they were actors and not necessarily celebrities. They could go out in public and go have dinner and not be mobbed by paparazzi and have people all in their business. Like my favorite story is about Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio when they were married. They went to dinner one night. They got out of their car. Someone says, oh, "That's Marilyn Monroe. That's Joe DiMaggio." They went into the restaurant in the front. No one bothered them. They had their dinner and they left like normal people.
Well, the only counter argument to that is that the studios also basically own their entire lives, and like a lot of women were forced to get abortions. Back when abortions were illegal and stuff. So it wasn't perfect, but like the craftsmanship just on its own, I think, was pretty unparalleled. And
we're going to get a look at all of that in February. one of the
Let's
selections.
move back from the nostalgia just a piece.
Okay.
And anybody else have anything that they want to say about Minstrel Show and Mandy?
Well, Mandy as a dance number, like you said, is incredible. And I do think it is kind of a showstopper in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Mandy was absolutely great. I mean, I prefer choreography to just straight up dancing. I always think it's awesome how everyone can get in sync and do everything, just right. So any choreography I really enjoy.
But
so-
I didn't all throughout the years of watching this film, I never, because I didn't know who Martha Graham was for most of my life. I didn't connect the two, and then of course after having marketed the Martha Graham Dance Company for one of my previous jobs, I learned who she was and what a big deal she was to the world of dance and everything. And then I see it reflected back here, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So it is kind of a funny kind of send up of that style and of what would eventually become modern dance, as opposed to what they're doing. But that really kind of amused me in a way that it never did before.
So I'm probably going to move on with those two as well once we get to them.
Oh.
But before we go, just to make sure that we're covering everybody, Dave, Tammy, Forrest, any of you have anything you wanted to say about Mandy? Or I was going to say Tammy, Mandy or a Minstrel Show?
I thought that Mandy, that was a very, very good dance. And I agree with Kim that nowadays I don't think anybody could pull that off again. They just, and you still keep smiling and still look like you're having a time of your life. And I do agree though that, maybe there was a little bit too much stuff like the choreography one. I think we could have probably done without. The other one, Mandy was great.
I really enjoyed choreography. Just to put that out there.
I enjoyed choreography to a certain extent because it gave us something that Danny Kaye could do, and it showcased like some of his dance moves.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But
right.
on the other hand, I do think that it was unneeded, and the thing is, you have to realize that these other dance choreography sessions or sections were specifically set up for the characters of Phil and their company, the show that they were putting on at this hotel. So you wanted to see some talent from what they could put on.
So
to the caliber that they were bringing.
Forrest, you were saying?
Right.
No, I was just kind of generally agreeing with the minstrel act. It's like, oh my, when I first mentioned, I'm like, wow, really? It's like, I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this is a movie from the 50s. And I was, and I was like, kind of thankful that there wasn't any a little relief, surprised and relieved that there wasn't any like blackface or any any of them trying to any like I guess stereotypes, stereotyping. But yeah, choreography was really well done. But yeah, minstrel was like, it's kind of like wow, it was just that was definitely one of those moments that it's like that where I felt like it was this where I realized this movie is definitely a product of it is in some respects a very much a product of its time.
Well, why don't we talk about the elephant in the room and bring up choreography and Abraham because those two, so technically they happen later. They are really a part of the musical pieces that reflect. I mean, Abraham is more just a dance number that, again, showcases Mary was like Vera Allen and John Brescia when they do their dances. But and it's a pretty impressive piece as well, just because again they're impressive dancers. But choreography, maybe it's because my mother hated it all those years, and much like my father would say, what he would say every year, that I can remember in my life. My mother would, for the most part, like, I can do something else. I'm going to go wash the dishes. Almost always, she would find the excuse to get up during that part because she always hated it. The drab dresses, the odd motions, the dance. I learned to dislike some of it, but as a song, I really did like it. Because I do like how it is. I just don't feel like it fits the film. I do understand what you're saying about at the time. I understand why it's there. With, as you said, Martha Graham. Yeah, I mean, I understand why it's there. It's at the same time, does it fit the movie? No, but then again, Martha Graham's style doesn't really fit a lot of things in that age.
Well,
either.
I would disagree with that actually. I think that it fits in that it is of the time, but it's more so that the context of it is something spoofing that a little bit, because her style of dance was, and I'm sure Kim can probably back me up on this. Her style of dance was very modern dance, but very dramatic, very serious, very self-conscious in terms of what all it was trying to communicate. And the context of that particular number is kind of making fun of just the self-seriousness of it and just bringing back some older styles of dance because it fits that theme of nostalgia. And it does get us into, I think, some very impressive bits of physicality, like with the nerve tapping that Vera Allen does, which that always
Oh yeah,
that
that's
always
impressive.
that always took our breath away as a family when we watched it. And we would always quote, the theater, what's happened to the theater? It's like we would always say that. And but no, I think it fits because, like, think about it. So we've got the minstrel show, which, again, like I said, like it or not, that was a pretty big part of the history of American theater, even older than the time period that this is covering. And you
Right
got
on that.
that. You've got that. You've
Yeah.
got Martha Graham, who's kind of a newer school of dance. You've got just nostalgia in general, but it's not just nostalgia itself. It's specifically about styles of dance, styles of performing that they're talking about as well, versus newer stuff.
Any case, as we move forward, any other thoughts on choreography? I know several of the others here have touched out, or does anybody really want to talk about
It
Abraham?
was really weird because it just kind of happens out of nowhere. I was actually very confused when that number started because it's like, wait, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Because it's like, we'll talk to our contact in New York. Is this the contact in New York? What's going on? Why
It's
is this
kinda-
here?
It is kind of filler in terms of the narrative.
Yeah.
It
I think
genuinely
that's really where
blindsided me.
I really think
Right.
that's where we come from when several of us would say that it could have done without it. I understand why it's there, but yeah, I mean, it does feel, out of all of these, it feels the most like filler.
There is a
Yeah.
sign saying that they're practicing full dress rehearsal for choreography. So that one is actually the only one that's actually mentioned ahead of time that they're going to be doing it. So
Right. But I agree with what Dustin was just saying. It does kind of come in out of left field, even with the sign. It fits the narrative insofar as we know they're rehearsing pieces for the show.
right.
But there are some ways that it kind of sticks out. I'm always amused by how it lampoons the self-seriousness of a lot of theater people, like the way that the theater, but the whole thing of, like, they don't call it dance, they call it choreography, like the whole, they got the special jargon that they use and all this
Right.
kind of stuff, and it's so it does amuse me, but it's just like I said, it always throws me a bit out of the film. I just feel like it's one of the weaker links. Like, it would have been an awesome deleted scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely filler. I mean,
I really enjoyed it.
I mean, a lot of song and dance numbers, if you're talking purely narratively, a lot of them are filler. But in that one's particularly that way, I would say.
It's
But
kind of a shift in tone too.
little bit. But I another moment I really loved is when he comes through the floor with the trap door.
Yeah.
That's unexpected in a really dazzling way. Like you do not expect that at all.
Right.
And the camera angle is such that it's not obvious at first what's happening, and he just kind of appears, which I really like.
Now, in all fairness, these days I can't picture the film without it. But same thing with Mandy, though. I can't picture the film without Mandy or
It
Minstrel
would be
Show.
different.
But I've watched it every year since I've been born, so maybe it's it's all that at the end of the day.
Right.
Um,
So, shall we talk about the big Oscar-nominated number that takes place during this time?
well, let's see here. We've got Mandy, so let's go ahead and talk about Count Your Blessings because that's
Yes.
technically between Mandy and Choreography.
Right.
Where we have a bonding moment between Bing Crosby and
Mm-hmm.
Rosemary, yes, where they meet kind of both up at night, and it's obviously an arranged meeting by
Right.
meddling partners, and
Mhm.
which go very well together because, of course, Judy Haynes and Phil Davis are both meddlers and kind of conniving in their own way. And they both managed to
Mhm.
get them to meet up together. And Bing Crosby does sing the song about buttermilk and sandwiches.
Well, that does have a bit of nostalgia for me because it's like back in the day, I remember back in the day when Kroger was not a Richmond thing.
I had a
But
professor that
like,
drank buttermilk straight from the carton, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's
there,
so gross.
but my dad had a lot of family in the Salem region of Virginia, and there's still a fair number there. And every time we had a tradition for many years of going to Thanksgiving in Salem, and I really kind of miss that tradition. But it's kind of been restarted in Glen Allen. But yeah, anyway, um, every time we would go to Salem or Roanoke, Dad would make sure we went to Kroger so he could get some buttermilk. And I didn't get it because I did not enjoy buttermilk growing up. But that was the thing. If we were in Salem, he had to go get Kroger buttermilk.
It's
So
good in recipes, but not on its own. Oh God.
What's that? He used to love doing. He used to love putting popcorn in it and like doing that sort
I
of
used
thing.
to
But
I put it on cereal by mistake, and it was a very bad
Oh,
oh,
mistake.
I've done
God,
that too.
yes,
That is a
you know.
bad mistake when you're not expecting it.
That
Hey,
happened to me too once I was a kid.
All
The-
I've ever done with buttermilk is bake with it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but my mom had some to make some biscuits with it. I didn't know what it was. I poured it on my cereal and almost threw up. Oh,
Right.
But let's I guess go back to the song itself, which is
hold
a
on.
very good song.
Hold on. Before the song, the other thing that he talks about was the we are loaded here, the whole
The Vermont Smorgasbord.
yeah, that and the I have a whole big theory about that. Different kinds of foods give you different kind of dreams. Apparently that was all Bing. Apparently that whole thing, little on the scat backside, that whole stuff. It's like that. It's just so cool to know that came right from the source. It wasn't, just because I know that 50s slang was very particular. But like just knowing that it was that plus just his natural vernacular, it's like no wonder it sounds the way it does. And I love the
Right.
I love the what about liverwurst? I dream about liverwurst. That's great.
Nightmare, probably.
Yeah. But that transitions in so nicely with such a beautiful song. I think it's probably the most lyrically beautiful song out of all of them, right next to the titular White Christmas. But it's like the sentiment of it is something that I definitely hold on to. You know, that
Oh.
one does have to count one's blessings.
Right.
It is a beautiful song. It was one that I know that our family, according to what I've been told, some relatives that did it. One group, there was a movie I think that they had a group that talked about when they were younger. They used to sing the Sisters song to their relative, and I know this film definitely has ingrained into many minds over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Right.
I'm kind of happy to know that Dustin has never heard of this because it's neat having a fresh perspective. It really is. I mean, what did you think of that scene when it came on, Dustin? I mean, what were your thoughts?
What you seen now?
The one where he's talking about counting your blessings. The one where they were trying to push Rosemary Clooney and Bing Crosby's character together.
My mind is blanking, actually.
That's all right. It's
Well, I know Forrest was also a first timer with this. How about you?
I think I was just kind of into the story, and I didn't really give it much thought. Is that kind of
Yeah,
where
I
you
was-
were too?
I was more into for me. I was just more into the visuals.
Well, I would argue though that number is probably one of the more story driven numbers out of all of them.
Oh, it is.
It's kind of the opposite of choreography in that respect.
I mean, it's like Jacob said.
Right.
There are a few select songs that are directly in the story that are not just performance pieces, and this is one of those, and it is a main one. And you can
Although
tell
this one does get an interesting callback.
yes,
Like right when they're starting to fight and he doesn't even realize they're fighting yet. He's
they bring
asking
it up.
like, do you want to put this in the show? I think it'd be great in the show. This, this tender moment they'd had together. He's already written music and lyrics for it. And he's,
They're both
and
together.
right.
But these are pieces. I mean, for me, I love that we're all over the board here. To me, I think I'm probably one of the people here that has had the most sentimental attachment, just because. I mean, shoot, just talking about a lot of the times almost brings tears to my eyes because of relatives long gone. And I remember a lot of this coming because we would always watch it on Christmas Eve. After coming home, we would always celebrate my grandmother's birthday, which was on the 26th. Different grandmother, and we would come back, exchange presents with the grandparents, and then we would sit down to watch the film. And I always associated this the most with my thoughts and would always come back to looking at the Christmas lights, just drifting off. And possibly because as a kid, I'd probably drift off at this point.
Speaking of birthdays, interesting trivia about this. Michael Curtiz was a Christmas Eve baby.
Wow. See, there you go.
So that's appropriate that he did this, I guess.
So we're celebrating his birthday every year when we watch it.
I understand how you feel with the nostalgia, though. My great grandparents meant the world to me. And every time I watch this, it makes me think of them because I know how much they actually appreciated the film and the people that were in it and all the music and the dance that they loved watching, movies like this. So it really makes me think of them because I still miss them very much.
And that's the beauty of art. And I'm glad you brought that up because one of the themes we'd had years past is nostalgia can be a terrible thing when it comes to coloring a potentially bad movie as a good movie. But at the same time, I think nostalgia can be a huge tool and can bring us back to places that we would love to be. And this film is not only a good film technically, but also it can bring a lot back. And I think it's a great thing to have as an attachment piece.
Well,
I think I feel this. I think I feel the same with my grandma Grace. She liked this movie, and she was more of a film watcher more than my father's parents were, and this makes me kind of remember times with her too.
Well,
So.
I think of
Yeah.
my family when I think of this film, but then I also think about like both of my grandfathers served in World War II, and it's a good kind of testament to kind of the best of their generation and what they were able to give to all of us who are alive today.
Yeah, my grandparents both loved the film, and my grandfather was also in World War II, won some medals and stuff. So yeah, I agree with that, and it is nostalgic. Like I said, my nostalgia actually was the opposite. That I didn't really remember. I remember the movie always being around, but not actually really enjoying watching it. But like I said, I really enjoyed it now as an adult. As a kid, I couldn't really appreciate it, but I did spend time with my grandparents watching it, and my mother, of course, on Christmas time.
Well, I think that's the idea, is that later on you realize, hey, I can see some of the things that they see now, and then you appreciate it even more. Then you add the memories on top of it, it goes.
Yeah.
But anybody else have anything to say about the words and music? No, count your blessings instead of sheep. Anybody else have any comments on that?
I think that's a beautiful song, a beautiful way to think, a beautiful way to look at the world. That count your blessings, not the sheep. I just think it's said very beautifully.
Yeah, and I've sung that song myself before. It's an easy one to sing, but it's a very beautiful one, and it's a fun one.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that there's times I have trouble falling asleep, and I'm always thinking about my problems and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, if I thought about my blessings more, so then it'd probably be a lot better. I try to a little more. I'm less pessimistic than I used to be, so that's a good thing. So it really gives a positive message and very optimistic, and I like that.
So,
yes, it's a much more positive and uplifting message than the one provided by the sheep in Gregory Horror Show.
Ironically, I wasn't really moved by that, because I was kind of just like, I don't know. I've had similar problems, and I don't know. I think I'm in such a negative headspace that kind of thing, that kind of attempt at a mindset just doesn't do anything for me. So I was just kind of like, when I heard that.
Well,
And
that's when you need it the most, though.
As a professional on the topic,
That's why I thought it was ironic.
I can say that, yeah, sometimes one has to force the mind to think things that it doesn't want to think in order to get it. Boy, that sounds like a line they'd make out of this movie. In order to get it to where it needs to be. But that's the thing, and that's a professional opinion from somebody who works in the field. But
it's still a good line. It's just kind of like it didn't knock my socks off.
and it's hard, because if you're depressed and you're down, you're only going to think negative. That's it. That's all you're going to think. So you really have to force yourself to think things that even you personally don't believe, until you can kind of move your mind into believing it. You have to trick your mind into getting there. And it's kind of a deceit, much like the whole Vera Ellen and and Danny Kaye deal is there. So let's when we move on, I don't want to cover too much about the whole deceit, the whole Rosemary Clooney thing. We've covered that angle pretty well.
Right.
But one thing I will cover from that part, there are two areas where we get to it. One of them is the time where Danny Kaye sets up a fake marriage proposal with Vera Ellen in order to try and
it's more
vice versa.
Yeah, well, yeah,
it was her idea.
She sets it up as the scheming one, and in
aren't
order
I gay and charming, fun to be with? Yeah, but so is my Cocker Spaniel.
I'm not bad to look at, am I?
But that's a way of them trying to say, well, maybe it's because she's too protective, and that way she can move on with her own life. But in
Right.
truth, because of what she's going through, it does the opposite and causes her to drive off. What did y'all think of that whole attempt by the two to push, including the announcement scene where they keep pushing them together to dance and they keep separating as it goes?
I think that they were partially pushing them together, but they were also having feelings for each other, and that was driving them too. I think even Danny Kaye's character definitely had feelings for her too, but he was definitely more like, oh shit, I don't want to get married, kind of freaking out about it, even though he had feelings for her, and she was just kind of like, we're great together, let's do it, even though she was saying it in like a fake thing, but I don't think she really wanted it to be fake. I think she really wanted.
Oh, she was feeling it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And when it was also funny how she's trying to kiss him, and he just like running away, like
right.
Dude, beautiful girl's trying to kiss you. Why are you running away?
And then of course you have that great scene after they've announced it, where the general's like, "Aren't you going to kiss the bride?"
Yep.
And then he gives her a little peck, and then he's like, "Oh, well, why don't I?"
He enjoyed it and gave her a bigger
kiss.
kiss.
In some ways, you're far superior to my cocker spaniel.
Yeah, because every woman wants to hear that,
Right. Makes you wonder what he's been doing.
Yeah, you gotta kiss her, I guess.
Well, and I liked what she said right before that didn't hurt too much, did it?
He said it himself. Like, he's the kind of person that likes to push other people into it, but doesn't want to do it himself.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Well,
of course,
that whole scene with her getting closer to him and he's like backed into a corner, I'm like, oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, of course, Brandon, you skipped over a pretty big part, which is the whole reason for the misunderstanding in the first place was that Wallace had seen the general's reaction when he got that rejection letter from Washington.
Yeah,
and we talked about it. We just we talked about it back at the further back, and then we hit on the deception with the observed phone call when we talked about. So we did hit it. Matter of fact, there was a line from that I always use these days is where he's playing the trombone. Which
I
tend to play the trombone a little bit more often than I want.
Yeah, I understand that more than I want to. I don't pull it quite as far away as he does, but
and that was another ad lib from from Bing Crosby.
Yeah, it does get there is that nice little moment where it does give you some nice little character moment there with him and the general, and then of course later when he's explaining to Phil, like if you'd seen his look, you'd know the show's not going to be enough, but yeah, so they get this hot idea of, well, let's get as many people there as we can, and it
from the troops
mostly works. Yes, rally the troops, exactly.
Yeah. I think it's stupid, ridiculous, and insane. What else? Yeah, anything else? Yeah, I wish I'd have thought of it first.
Yeah, it was definitely a Danny thing to say. As soon as I knew he was going to say it before he said it, I was like, he wished he thought of it.
Did anybody else really appreciate the choreography and the dance scene where they announce the engagement? Just how they switch partners so seamlessly.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and the one guy keeps butting in, and they turn him off onto that squeaky voiced girl.
I'm sure.
The big howler line for me and my family was, "I sure wish it would happen to me." Oh, I do too.
She reminds me of the voice of the actress who played in Singing in the Rain.
Oh yes, and she was putting that voice on. Thankfully, that wasn't her real voice, but yes, I know what you mean.
Any other thoughts about those scenes before we move on to New York?
I'm trying to think.
No. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, there is the one part where like they've been asking, they go to Wallace like, why don't you jump in? The water's fine or whatever. And he's
I
like,
know
I
it
don't
seemed a
know, it
little bit
feels a
icy
little
today.
icy. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it
Very
does.
icy that day. So,
Oh yeah.
well, we, and of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
Rosemary.
You
Go
ought to
ahead,
be
Jim.
you ought to be horsewhipped. First you, and then you again. He's like, and yeah, to get Mother Chick, and we had to get Mother Hen. I guess we laid an egg. You, my friend, you laid a Vermont volleyball.
So,
You ought to consider yourself lucky. You could have been stuck with this weird mobile for life. You just
that's when
can't.
she starts bursting into tears.
I know, but it's like you can't write that stuff. It just has to come from
The
a very
reaction
special
almost
place.
comes as if she's considering, oh shoot, I could have been married to him.
Yeah.
But so of course, Rosemary's character gets mad, and so she leaves. Like, okay, fine, I'm not needed anymore. I'm going my own way because I can't forgive this misunderstanding that I'm not even willing to ask questions about. And I'll let Cole back in. But so she goes to New York, and of course they're all like, why? And as they go on, of course, as y'all were talking about, it comes out that yes, it's a fake engagement. Yes, they were trying to do this, and he's like, crap, I'm gonna go over to New York anyway. I'm gonna see if I can find her and fix things. So he goes on to so he can work on the Ed Harris show, which Ed Harris' son played by Johnny Grant. And there are two musical numbers during that. Of course, they go to see Rosemary's new single, which is the Love You Didn't Do Right by Me. And of course, on the air to summon all the troops from the old regiment, we hear What Can You Do for a General, which of course Danny Kaye has to distract the general, who is a big Ed Harris fan, while this is going on, so that he doesn't realize that they're bringing back as many of the old unit as they can in order to try and celebrate. So that's a lot to unpack in New York, but what are y'all's thoughts about New York?
Well, that Rosemary Clooney pointed out kind of a contrivance of the New York stuff in that, oh, gee whiz, she booked that job in New York really fast, which I
Yes,
didn't
Right.
I didn't really think about that before.
she was
She
always
did.
planning to split up with her sister. You just didn't know it.
I guess, but the other thing that I'm sure Kim would appreciate, and I'm sure she already knows it, but one of her backup dancers, her handsome guys who are posing dramatically, is George Chakiris. Probably mispronouncing that, but he was the person who played Bernardo in the original version of West Side Story and won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in that. And but that was his appearance in that scene apparently is kind of what launched his career, because a lot of people are like, "Who is that guy?" So it really like made a big impression, and that kind of allowed his career to get going, such that he got that role in West Side
Cool.
Story years later. So how about that?
What did y'all think of that song, the Love You Didn't Do Right by Me?
It's a nice torch
I
song.
really like it.
You
It's
can
like,
see why she kind of freaked out when she was all set to do it, but then she saw Wallace
Yeah.
in the audience, and she's like, I don't know if I would. I want to think this at him. I don't want to sing it to him.
that would have been a good if it had been a film noir. That would have been a good femme fatale song if they had like a Jessica
yeah.
Rabbit style character, who was a singer. Yeah, that would have been great.
Oh, it
I
definitely
always,
feels like right out of that sort of film, no doubt.
Hmm.
I really like the song. For me, there's something just, of course, it fits the character at the time, and she probably looks her most beautiful and striking at that moment in the film to me. Um, in a stark way, in a dark way, but still, there is something about it, almost mesmerizing in the way it's performed. But that's my take on it.
I really enjoyed the song as well, and yeah, she definitely that definitely looked really great doing it, and
Mhm.
you really kind of see into her feelings. with the song and everything, and also I want to point out is the Danny Kaye part, keeping him away and his heart leg and
Yes.
not being able to put any weight on it and stuff, and he does such a
It
great
was
job holding his
just
leg
a
up.
small compound fracture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to call a doctor, of course, because you're not really hurt, but
And
just,
I wouldn't want to faint in front of the women, sir.
Yeah.
it's just a wonderful scene again of Danny Kaye's dancing ability, to
His physicality, yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
Well, I love the I wouldn't want to faint in front of the women, sir. And then the other one that General Waverly has, which it's not meant as a joke, but it's just one of those, oh, the 50s. It was the here's something I haven't even told the women folk. And I was like, nobody says that anymore.
Yeah, true enough.
Yeah,
Right.
and just as well, but it's like both of those make me laugh.
So what did y'all
Mhm.
think of the Ed Harris bits as well? With the what can you do for a general? I mean, what can
One thing I found interesting is that I read some viewer comments and whatever, and from what I can tell, that seems to be the song everyone wanted to get rid of in the film.
I
And
love
I'm
that
sitting there,
song.
I think it's a good song, and I think it's very appropriate to the mood and scene and whatever that it's in.
it's
Now
very
I can see
appropriate. I mean, as much
it
as I like the
hasn't.
other song, it's definitely more appropriate than that one.
I could argue, and I could see the argument that it hasn't really aged as well as it could have, because I'm sorry, honestly, my personal viewpoint is that given the things that the enlisted men and officers have to go through on their return home, screw the generals, but the
Yeah.
point made in the song definitely lands if you think about it just generally in terms of the idea of someone who's here today and gone tomorrow. Like they say, like, here comes the general, and they
And they
all
all
say
say
General
General
who.
Who. They're delighted that he
And
came.
there is some resonance there, like, of someone who enjoyed an important position, who earned an important position, and then, well, their career's over, and, well, what are they going to do? And it's, I do think there's definitely some resonance there. I think it probably hasn't aged as well because they're specifically talking about a general. But I'm surprised that so many people didn't think it was an important part of the film.
I think it's a very important part of the film, and I would personally extend that to just service people in general. They're talking about a general in that context because that's what that's about specifically. But I think that enough
Right.
active servicemen and women that are entering the civilian world would be able to relate to that, and I have a whole other perspective on that now, having worked for a veteran-owned business and having served a lot of other veteran-owned businesses and about to enter another one. It's just like you see just what an uphill battle they have to fight to get reintroduced into the civilian world, let alone start a business or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I think that is more evergreen than I think a lot of people necessarily realize.
I also think that when you look at it, this one has a lot of story relevance because it's not necessarily just about a general in general, but also about Waverly in particular.
Right.
And when you're looking at it as a character in reference to the current story, it is perfect. It fits perfectly. And on top of that, the song itself and the performance is what brings Rosemary Clooney's character around. Yet, in my opinion, as stubborn as she has been put, it's amazing that this could have brought her around, considering. But it did. Melted her grinchy heart, and she was able to come back. Any other
Her
thoughts
heart
about
through three sizes that.
any other thoughts about these scenes from New York? All right. Well, with that being said, let's go ahead and get back to our to Vermont again. As they come back and they arrange for the final bit, Rosemary comes back and they quickly rearrange the final bit to include her in there without Bing Crosby's knowledge, which is interesting how that would work out. But I guess
Right.
the character's really good at ad libbing. And they managed to even convince the general by, oh, well, all of his stuff's in the laundry. Only your uniform is there, and obviously, and this is one of the few things that kind of redeems the character of Emma Allen, where she's like, "Oh, they didn't do anything for you, no, nothing at all," and got him to put the uniform on as he goes in the surprise.
I did quite well.
End,
I did quite well in the army without you. It took 15,000 men to take my place.
Yes, that was probably one of her best lines in the movie. Was that and the one about the Busybodies Anonymous. But I think this is really the one part where the granddaughter actually has a pivotal role, because without her, I'm not sure the housekeeper would have been enough to convince him to put the suit on.
They work together to get him to do it.
Right.
And he goes down. They of course have all of the unit members come back. They do the we'll follow the old man back again as a huge salute to him, and then they go on with the show, which includes "Gee, I Wish I Was Back in the Army," and of course "Let Me Sing I'm Happy,"
which again is another. The "Gee, I Wish I'm Back in the Army" is another one where it's like it's nostalgic, but it's tongue in cheek too. Like it's clearly meant to be taken lighthearted.
Really things on the background. If you look at the background scenery, but and of course they end it with White Christmas and her giving him the picture of the white horse, and of course it starts to snow, and they automatically have a sled driver at the ready to start moving as soon as it snows, which I still to this day take issue with and laugh at as I go into the movie. But
I don't think it's any worse than that second Taxi.
Instant sleigh ride.
So with that being said, what are y'all's thoughts on this final set of scenes?
I personally, I'm sorry, but Phil and what's her name, they spend the whole movie kind of being like partners in crime to set up her, her sister and his friend and stuff like that. And that's great. But I didn't really get a strong romance vibe from those two throughout the movie. Except for their first dance number together. That's it. And then every time after that, he's all shrinking away from her and stuff. And he's just like, oh, no. And it's obvious sometimes she's hitting on him, but the movie ends and it's all wrapped up in a neat little bow and they're a couple all of a sudden now. What the hell?
It wasn't as much of a payoff as you wanted.
There should have been more romance.
I didn't get the feeling that they were interested in each other, really. There was no chemistry.
I would disagree on that.
I'm a little mixed on that.
I would disagree too. I think that they had chemistry all over the place, and maybe the fact that they were so in sync, maybe that was kind of the movie's way of saying, well, we don't have to tell the audience what they already know just from seeing what they're, the fact that they're just such a natural fit. It's like, well, okay, that's that,
And I think his running away. I think his running away was not so much a lack of interest as it was that he was kind of a commitment phobe. He was, he was looking to get that 45 minutes for himself. And I think he probably knew that, well, if I get hitched, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I brought that point out when he, was pulling away from the kiss. It's it's not because he doesn't want to kiss her, just because he's afraid of what it comes with. Because he knows he has feelings for her, but he doesn't want to commit. So he's definitely. I mean, you can see the chemistry between them, right away, and all through it, no matter what they're doing. There's definitely chemistry there,
One
and
out of
definitely.
the two, you know, Bob, has the big character arc of the two, to the point where, like, at the end, it's like, Wallace and Davis are a smash. We gotta take the show to Chicago. He's like, no, I'm gonna be busy for a while, because he finally found the girl. He's like, oh wait, I'll join you. Which
Yeah,
I thought,
that was great. Choreography kissing.
Right.
So what did y'all think of that fight? I mean, the scenes themselves, the songs have some pretty cool setups, like that, those big fat suit type things that they were wearing at the end,
that
or
always caught my attention when I was a kid, because I was like, how did they do that? Just I don't know. I don't know. Just my brain was like, how on earth like, and I still kind of, I was looking at like the bottom track of the stage, and I was like, okay, so that's obviously something that they have in front of them. I get that, but then it's like the track that they're on is not as readily obvious as it could be, and that's obviously on purpose, because they don't want you to
Right.
think about that. But
I always get a little bit of a laugh from that visual though when when all this that comes up and you see them doing their little jig behind those cutouts.
And when you talk about utilizing color, the White Christmas redo at the end,
oh yeah,
does a remarkable job. I think between that and Mandy, those are the two striking scenes when it comes to the color.
when one thing I didn't mention with It's a Wonderful Life that I noticed here as well. I think it was just a style thing of the time, but you notice, was it tinsel that they had on the tree in both films?
Oh yeah,
Because
yeah,
older Christmas films, and I suspect just older Christmas traditions in general, they loved the tinsel. Like, they put it on
oh
their
yeah.
trees like crazy.
yeah.
Much
I mean,
more than I don't think my family ever did that on our tree. But then again, they had real trees there, and not the assemble your tree kind of thing.
that's more of a Greatest Generation type thing where they would take the tinsel, they'd put it on one strand at a time, and they would be meticulous about it.
Oh yeah.
And but that's something that's kind of got modern advances in decoration technology, you could say.
Mhm.
Away with it.
Right.
So, any other thoughts about the last set of musical numbers?
I thought the last set was beautiful. I mean, how they brought it all together, brought everybody together. The general just looked, you know, like lost for words. You could see it in his face. You could just see how this all meant so much to him. And then when they continued on with the numbers, it just and everybody got involved. I thought it ended the movie very well.
And Dane and Kroll, both of y'all had talked about this in earlier on. How Dane, you had said that the very first rendition of White Christmas was your favorite, and Kroll, you had said this rendition was your favorite. Do y'all still feel like that is the case? I mean, what is I mean, do you feel like nostalgia might have held on to that, or do y'all still feel like one or the other after our analysis?
Well, I mean, I've put a lot of thought into it, and I like the minimalism. Like, what usually I tend to favor minimalism over complexity, especially when it's towards that more dramatic end. I think for the climactic version of that number, I think it's appropriate. To have everybody there, because it's the final number. You got to do it.
Yeah.
It would be wrong to do it, I think, the other way. But just of the two, stylistically, I tend to be more of a fan of minimalism when it's used for drama. Just because I do think that is, the heaviest moment in what's otherwise a very light film. But it's necessary, I think, because it is ultimately what the purpose of that song is, and kind of the sentiment. So that way, then when you get to this moment, the war's been over for quite a few years, and there's kind of that hope for the holidays, thinking about what's really important, and it was preceded by, gee, I wish I was back in the army. So it is kind of remembering those times in a fun way, but also it's thinking about what's really important, but it's also the cast final bow, that whole thing. So they have their purpose.
How about you, Kroll?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat what you asked me?
Because I know at the beginning you had said this was the version that you preferred over the kind of music box version. Is that still your case when after we've had the discussion?
Yeah. I still stand by what I said originally. Definitely, better version in my opinion.
All right. Well, unless anybody else has anything else to say at the.
I know. I like the rendition of Ben Crosby singing it alone, but I also like the other one just as equally. So.
And Forrest, you had talked about you had been introduced to other people singing it.
Other
first.
renditions of the song of
other
the
renditions.
original song.
So how does the original? Of course, we haven't heard the original because the original was in Holiday Inn. But
Right.
as far as this, because the same person sang this as did the original. So how does this hold up to those to you?
I mean, I recognize. I mean, like when Bing Crosby sings it, I recognize it right away. I'd probably say I still prefer the Drifters. I still prefer the Drifters' rendition of the song. But but Crosby's. But I think. But yeah, I can see why Crosby's is the best, is the most popular rendition.
Right.
I prefer, me personally, I prefer the Scary Movie 2 rendition of I'm Dreaming of a White Woman.
Nice. Well, and also, I was going to say, well, obviously, parody goes hand in hand with this. This is one of the most recorded songs ever written, and I mean, in terms of different people, but also Crosby himself probably released or participated in at least 5 versions of this, I think.
Yeah.
Like I know there were the 3 movie ones, and I think he did a radio version which had some moderate instrumentation. You've got the Drifters version. You've got so many versions of this. And I often joke, like, if you're listening to the radio at Christmas time and you hear 10 songs, you're going to hear White Christmas at least 4 times. You're going to hear Blue Christmas at least 3 times. And you're going to hear the Christmas song at least once. And in any given set of 10 songs. So,
Well, okay, so two things about that. One, once you've gone the Scary Movie 2 treatment, I mean, that's just the pinnacle right there.
I know.
You can't get any higher than that. So there's that, number one. Number two, so we got White Christmas. We got Blue Christmas. Thank you, Elvis. Where's Red Christmas? If we're getting all patriotic
well, it's
with
a
it.
movie.
We don't talk about Red Christmas here.
Maybe if you go to Russia.
Well,
we need a Red Christmas like
I was gonna say, but we gotta have a Red Christmas. Then we gotta have them together if we want to be really patriotic with it.
We need a Red Christmas like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones.
Well, come on.
You got, the night Santa went crazy. There's probably a lot of red there.
There is.
When they wrote
that's
this
an awesome
song,
song.
who here, just out of curiosity, who here has heard the original rendition in Holiday Inn?
I've seen Holiday Inn, yeah.
I have.
The winning version. So we got Kroll has seen it, Jake has seen it. I'm sure you've seen it, Dane.
Strangely enough, I have not, and I was gonna make it part of my Christmas repertoire this year, but I never did.
Oh, and the great thing about Holiday Inn is you can watch it during many holidays because it represents many holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, have you heard
some better than others?
I have.
Okay, cool. Tammy, have you heard the original one, Holiday Inn version?
I'm not sure. I might have. Like I said, when I was a kid, I watched all of those movies with my great grandparents.
Yeah, it's one that's a harder one to remember. How about you? Well, I'm sure you haven't, Forrest, because your first rendition you'd heard elsewise. And of course, Dustin, Looked like it kicked him off, and he's like, I'm done for good. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was a song that they were setting out to make a true Christmas classic. Do we think that they succeeded in that?
I think they did. I mean, I think that again, this one in any version of the Grinch. That's what I think of when I think of Christmas. And this song in particular is what I think of when I think of Christmas. So, for my
Mhm.
money, they did. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm a little dubious when it comes to like what defines a Christmas classic, because well, technically anything can be a classic for any person. It does seem like Christmas films in particular are banking on the idea that even if it's bad, that they'll release it, and if enough people watch it for long enough, that it will get those kind of ABC Family residuals from all the repeat viewings and all of the people that just watch it because they grew up with it, etc. Even if it's not good.
That's like
Um,
why they released the sequels in Star Wars in December.
well,
I mean, it
I would say
clearly,
that's not why Jingle All the Way is considered a cult classic 25 years later.
Well, that's kind of where
Right.
I'm going with it. It's like it really doesn't matter if it's bad. It's just the fact that it exists. I think
Or,
that's
the
or
song clearly resonated with people at the
it's
time.
the only genre that really is that dependent on just people's sentimentality and their tendency to repeat watch stuff even if it's not good.
whoa.
But that being said, I do think
I
this
wouldn't necessarily
is.
say, yeah, about this.
One could argue romantic comedies fall into that mold too, but
Yeah, but this one's got the season attached to it in
right.
a way that those
No,
don't. But that's what I'm getting at is that this one, this one is helped with the repeat viewings for sure. But I think just objectively, it's some of the best of its kind.
I mean, one could say also, if you look at it at its time, which also because a lot of times we'll look at these things like Jingle All the Way or some of these others, and they didn't do so well when they initially released, but they became popular afterwards. This one did not uh, was not a faltering piece at its release. It was doing very well, and the
Highest
song
grossing film of 1954.
and the song itself was also there. So we
Well,
know that it's not just about people looking at it on repeat and coming back later. This
well,
was a phenomenon from the
the
beginning.
the song itself was part of the reason why.
Mhm.
Like a modern day equivalent would probably be, let's say, in another 6 or 7 years, uh, some studio, almost certainly Disney, because I can't imagine them letting this out of their death grip. But let's say Disney decides to hire Lin-Manuel Miranda or someone like that to take Let It Go and turn that into its own brand new movie.
Ugh.
That would be the equivalent, I think,
Yeah.
of what we've got.
That'd be like a
If it
Disney.
was,
That sounds like a Disney Channel movie.
if it turned out to be a good movie, I mean,
Well, yeah, you know what I mean, though. Like they basically were banking on the popularity of the song and successfully. And of course, I don't think we've even mentioned, or we've only mentioned in passing, that the entire musical repertoire here is Irving Berlin.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, it
And
says that in the beginning in the
amazing artist.
credits at the end.
right. And a lot of these songs are not original to the film. Like White Christmas, they were drawn from earlier Berlin
Oh yeah, I
projects.
mean, Blue
But
Skies, things like that. They're just
right,
like they were
You know,
constant. I mean, most of
right,
these people, when you say minstrel show, many of these people have been in minstrel shows.
right.
I mean, that's how they went about. This is why, if you look at it from the time period, it's
Hmm.
understandable. I
Hmm.
mean, now they probably should have known better, but it's still,
Right,
it's where their base was, and of course they would
right,
acknowledge that. Now,
right.
looking at this, Forrest, you're the only one left here standing because Dustin is gone. That has seen this for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Since you're the only one who has not seen this with nostalgia on, do you feel that it is still a good movie seeing it for the first time this year?
Objectively, yes. Um, I mean, again, it's really well made. I think it's a great looking movie. Granted, I'll admit, although I did feel, I'll admit, there were times where I was like, where I'm kind of like watching it, I'm like, wait, this is still a Christmas movie, right?
Yeah, I hear you there. I did think that a few times. How is this a Christmas movie?
Because there was just numbers where I just didn't feel, where it feels like it could have been any other musical from that era of Hollywood. Although I will be honest, this is probably not going to be a movie that I'll be watching for Christmases to come. Just because I'll admit it's musicals in general just aren't really not my cup of tea.
And again, it's probably one. I mean, things like that usually tend to be nostalgic,
right? And I didn't grow up with. I didn't grow up with this movie. Yeah. This is not a movie that my parents would put on during the holidays. Knowing my dad, he would probably use some. He would probably because my dad's not really into musicals either, and I feel like if he were to watch it, he'd probably just use some homophobic slur for it.
Well, and that's something I agree with. I mean, that's how I feel about most people when they talk about White Christmas, is that because many people, not White Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life, because to me, I didn't watch that until my 30s as my first viewing. So again, it's understandable.
I watched it a couple years ago for the first time.
When I think of Christmas, though, White Christmas surprisingly is not the first one, or the second.
No,
I always think of It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street. Those are my.
I'll admit, for me, when I think Christmas movies, when I'm in the mood for a Christmas movie, or thinking Christmas movies, I'm probably thinking stuff I grew up with, like Home Alone or Batman Returns, as you can see in my avatar.
Oh yeah, and for me, that's something that I have no association with Christmas on, even though I can on the surface see it. And that's the thing, is nostalgia is a powerful part of the season. And we've seen people who've had nostalgia and people who haven't, and it's just it's good to look at it that way. But as a film itself, it sounds like it holds up pretty well. And let's move real quickly into the music in general. I mean, there's a lot of more renditions of things like the Sisters song, the I Fall Asleep Counting My Blessings, and a couple others like that. They kind of do more basic musical background pieces. But any of y'all have anything else to say about the music of this film that we haven't discussed?
That was pretty solid.
We haven't even mentioned Irving Berlin, who wrote the damn thing musically.
We did a few minutes ago.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, I think this is some of his best writing. And I mean, he was a great songwriter, and this really shows, what he was capable of.
Oh, I mean, the classics in general. I mean, though really and truly White Christmas is probably the only one that the public at large over this remembers fully. They're still very amazing songs, very memorable songs. So why don't we move? I mean, anybody else have anything else on the music before we move on to? So let's talk about real quick the not really special effects, but the production design. That's the word I'm looking for. And
excellent production design.
Because
we look at definitely, especially the final number.
Yeah, we think production, we think special effects, we think CG and stuff like that. But really and truly, we should look in production, design, and costume when we look at this. And if you really look at it that way, it's really amazing film.
Oh yeah, no, like I said, they really did go all out with most of the production design. The inn itself is a wonderful set, and they did a really good job using that. I could see it would be kind of a nice place to hang out for a few days,
Yeah. Who wouldn't want to go for the Vermont smorgasbord with the butter?
Well, I know. I mean, but especially because they apparently let you go behind the bar to get it yourself. but that works fine, you know. And again, I think we mentioned in passing, but this was either the first or one of the first to use that VistaVision tech, which was kind of a nice.
It was actually the
apparently,
first.
Yeah, it was
right.
the first.
Yeah, it says it on the movie. It said
Yeah.
it on the movie that this is the first ever time using the VistaVision.
Oh, the
Right.
Reds pop amazingly with this film, and the restoration has done wonders for it over the years. And I mean, I agree with that with the end. I mean, when they did the initial scene where you show the sisters doing their sister act on the stage, you actually see a few people kind of scattered around. You see the staff waiting on the sides and the bar and all of that. They really did fully fledge out this ski lodge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, if y'all were in the 50s, if you're looking for just a nice place to stay for the winter as a vacation and snow out, if there was snow outside, would y'all want to go to the ski lodge?
Well, I mean, even without the snow, like, I mean, just as like you got a floor show, you got a bar, you got a really nice rustic place to stay. I mean, I could see a few people just going out for a night, getting hammered, watching the music, and have a place to crash until the morning. You know, you could do worse.
Well, kind of funny historical facts. So I went to the Land of Oz in Beach Mountain, North Carolina, back in September of this year, and that is a skiing town that needed to drum up some more business during those warm months when there was no snow, and that's why they built the Land of Oz theme park. And it's like, well, hey, if they're really hurting for money or whatever, they could have, besides even the show, saving them, could have thought about that. Some of those other like non-skiing type of attractions or angles to take, during those times when they would otherwise need it.
And you definitely should check out the video. It's on Dangerous Arts. I'm sure Dan will talk about that in Oztober. Well, if he doesn't, you should be seeing Oztober.
Mm-hmm.
As I know, it's quite an amazing thing for Wizard of Oz, but it was a really cool video.
Well, that video of me touring the Land of Oz theme park is the most viewed out of all the Oztober videos, even more than the reviews.
The curiosity of it, I mean, people going to that kind of creepy-ish. Was it creepy on your?
No, very much not the case. It was, well, because it was, in full operation and everything. It wasn't like I was doing like those urban explorers where they go when they're not, but they technically break and enter when they do that. But no, it was very much not creepy. It was very lively and magical. But that's what I mean. Like they could have, but I know that General Waverly sunk every dime he ever made into remodeling the place, so that's why they probably didn't have anything left over for something like that. But there's probably other, non-wintry alternatives that they could resort to make that hotel an appealing place to go during those times when there is no snow. Because that's what they did in Beach Mountain, because that's normally a resort town. Just not in the, not in the winter months, or sorry, not in the ones that are not winter months.
So, anything else to say before we move on to best favorites and all that?
No.
All right. Well, let's move on to favorites. Why don't we do something, because it's a musical? Why don't we hit favorite scene and favorite song? We'll start with you, Jake. What's your favorite scene and favorite song?
I have a few potential favorite scenes, so it's kind of hard to say for sure. I would say probably most of the scenes with Emma are probably going to be my favorites, just because she was pretty hilarious, and there were a couple really good ones there. And I've mentioned as we've gone a couple others that I enjoyed. And as far as the songs, there are several good ones, but I'm probably going to say for emotional impact, I'll probably agree with Dane that the original, like the first depiction of White Christmas is probably the most impactful in the film, with the Count Your Blessings and the second White Christmas being a close second. But in terms of catchiest song, and the one I always think of other than that, it's probably We Follow the Old Man. I just like that song.
How about you, Forrest? Favorite scene, favorite song?
Let's see. Favorite scene. Kind of feel like when they're I kind of feel like when they get into like the variety, into doing variety shows. That's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, even though this is like a very this is like a high, at the time this was like considered a huge Hollywood production, but they kind of do show like the realistic side of show business for performers. But I would say, and favorite number, I would say White Christmas. It's a timeless classic.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, how about you, Kroll? What's your favorite scene, favorite song?
My favorite scene is when they do the women's act instead of them. I just laugh so hard. There's definitely some funny scenes throughout the movie, but I just laughed so hard at that one. I was just laughing almost throughout the whole throughout the whole act, and just really funny. So I had to go with the favorite scene there. Favorite song, it's hard because there is a lot of great songs in there. And I don't want to say White Christmas just to say White Christmas. It was a great song, but I think on the train when they're singing the snow song, probably one of my favorite songs. Just the way it came out, and it was kind of seemed so spontaneous and not planned and stuff, and so that seemed to be my favorite song because of that.
All right, Tammy, what's your favorite scene, favorite song?
Well, I actually agree with Kroll. I like it. I like when they do the girls number. That's always been one of my favorite scenes. Of course, the ending scene also. Favorite song is "Count Your Blessings."
All right, awesome. How about you, Dave?
I'm gonna have to say my favorite song would probably be White Christmas. At the very end, with everyone involved. I think just all the voices meshed well together. As far as favorite scene, I'll have to go with when the guys dressed up as the girls. That was my favorite scene. I'm sorry, but that is the perfect way for straight men to be able to make fun of an act while still pulling it off.
How about you, Dane? What's your favorite scene, favorite song?
Favorite scene is the dressing room scene, just because it's some of the best comedic writing I've ever read or seen performed. It's a well staged comedic scene, very just excellent all the way around. Favorite song I'll split it up. Favorite song in general is that first version of White Christmas. Favorite number, like actual performance number, everything, would be The Best Things Happen While You're Dancing. Just because that's a great song, but it's just, I don't know, that always sticks in my mind whenever I think about the film.
Truly.
So I have to kind of separate the two, because like White Christmas, hands down the best song out of all of them. That moment is just Bill. I keep wanting to say Bill Cosby and Bing Crosby. I keep conflating them. It's like, nope, different.
And they kind of reprise it a couple
Minor
of times during the film too.
Well, but it's but you know what I mean. Like Bing Crosby, there it's just him singing versus the other one's more of a performance. Not just for the singing, but the dancing as well, more of a number. So I have to split them out.
Kim, how about you? Did you have a favorite scene, favorite song?
Favorite scene is the when they're doing the sisters number scene, the minute, because it's hilarious. Like Danny Kaye, his comedic timing is just amazing. Like I just think he's so funny.
He's one of the best comedians of his time period. I swear.
Yeah.
Which, and oddly enough, you know who he influenced was George Carlin, and you wouldn't think so because you're like they're nothing alike, but no, apparently he really had an influence on George Carlin. So how about that?
Anyways, so
I love
favorite
them both,
song-
so makes sense.
Favorite song?
Are we all done?
Yeah,
Favorite
yeah.
song?
Let the woman speak.
Favorite song is White Christmas.
All right.
Favorite dance number, Mandy. Sorry. I didn't jump in there.
So yeah, my favorite scene also comes with the locker room scene. Smith, she didn't go to Smith. Go to Smith. She can even spell it. But as far as the songs, it really comes between Snow, which I just love the song, but I also really love the performance art in Mandy. I thought it was really cool with the tambourines, the movement. A lot of work went into that song. So I guess we'll go into outros. Kim, why don't you go ahead and first tell us a little bit about yourself, about where we can find you and support you.
Hi, I'm Kim. I'm SeptumSin. I've got my own YouTube channel, Kim Creates Stuff. Currently editing some videos right now for that. And basically that's it. I work on my channel and I come home to this crazy man and these 4 cats.
All right. How about you, Dane?
Well, I am Dane Kyle, and I have a YouTube channel, Dangerous Arts, DANEJUROUS Arts, where I did a show all throughout the month of October that I called Oztober. 31 days, 31 different Oz-related film and TV adaptations. We already mentioned the video that I did just as a bonus of me going to the Land of Oz theme park in Beach Mountain, North Carolina, which ironically has more views than any one of the reviews. But it makes sense because it's me going to this fantastical place. Currently working on April in Wonderland, which will debut in April 2022, and some people from this very show will be in there, so that'll be exciting. And yeah, you know, I want to try to introduce some more filmmaking aspects into April in Wonderland, not just reviews, because that is what I, studied to be, filmmaker, and still am. I just, the pandemic made it difficult to do things collaboratively like that, at least in person. So it's kind of my way of doing something that's a little bit related but different.
All right. And Oztober, if you haven't seen it and you like Wizard of Oz, you should check it out because darned if it is an amazing thing. Real quick, because Dustin is no longer on here, if you haven't checked out Crypt of Horrors, you probably should, especially if you like to see some pickup videos with some amazing things. He throws out a lot of pretty cool vinyl sets that you don't really see shown anywhere else. So check his channel out when you can. Any case, Tammy, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm Dave's fiance. I've been enjoying coming on this group and his other group and learning more about film from everybody as we do these. And I collect some things of my own. And in the summer, I take my car out and go to car shows.
If I'm ever in the time period where it's going on, if I'm in that area, I have to see it. I love a good car show, and I am certain that it would be amazing.
Well, it's a 1972 Grand Prix, and you can't miss it because it's green, and it's a very, very deep green that you normally don't see, and my car just usually stands out.
That is really cool, definitely. I mean, we did one in Covington every year, and I cannot think of the name of the thing right now, but always awesome to see. Kroll, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, actually Ron, but I go by Cole. I don't really work right now. I'm disabled, so I watch TV, I watch movies, read books, and I come on to the show. I love watching movies and then talking to them. So when I was invited to the show, I was really excited because it's what I always love to do. I hate when I see an exciting movie and no one else has seen it because I don't want to spoil it for them, so I can't talk about it. And I love coming on the show and doing that. And I also come on Sundays with Dave and Tammy and do reviews on that show as well. So it's fun. I enjoy it. Thank you guys for listening.
Hey, and some very great commentary that you've made tonight. Forrest,
and he reminded me real quick. Brandon, did you let people know there'd be spoilers?
There might have been spoilers talking about this show. I'll let y'all figure out if there were. Forrest, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer based on Long Island, New York. I also recently played the Toxic Avenger in a promo for Troma, as well as a movie. I'm also a collector of movies and also a collector of movies and comic books. I also recently joined the other recently with my fellow co-hosts of I'm also on another podcast called Script Club, where we do dramatic table readings of movie scripts. We recently did one of A Christmas Carol, so that which you can check out on you can't think of the channel right now. But yeah, I've always got something going on.
Very cool. And you have your own channel too for pickups, which I do have
Yes.
one below. So we can at least link there, and maybe other things will be linked below.
Yeah, my channel is called Forrest B. My channel is my name, Forrest B. Bennett.
So great channel, great content. I know I watch. Hopefully you will as well. Kotobukijake.
All right. Well, my name's Jake. I am a avid movie fan, collector, would-be participant, and whenever the opportunities come my way, which is not often, but here in Central Virginia, I am the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, where we talk about all kinds of fun stuff. We got a couple good holiday pickups, either out or in the works. We had our discussion last night on a truly peculiar anime, Gregory Horror Show. That was something interesting. We occasionally do random vlogcasts, random themed videos here and there. And meantime, I try to keep up with everyone in the viewing department. Between trying to start a small business and fielding hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls, people wanting those COVID tests, which for some reason we're giving away at the library. I am busy right now, but I do get some viewing done so that I could come on with these fine folks and have some fun little chats about this, that, and the other.
Well, of course, I'm SeptumSin of SeptumSin versus the World. We love physical media, pickup videos, and other things. In the new year, we're planning a lot of cool things, like reviews. I'm going to try and do some reviews there. We did do a review, excuse me, a quick review of the Bad Ben Christmas special, which was fun. But we're going to do a Bad Ben series coming up in January and doing one per month, which is going to be fun. Of course, we did do our anime anti-climax, which we do every month, and Gregory Horror Show was our target. You can hear the opinions on that if you check out our channel, which is also linked down below. And in general, we enjoy things here, and we love coming on Inside Movies Galore. And of course, I'll pass this back to Dave, and I'll come back briefly to let you know what we're going to expect next month.
Thank you, Brandon. My name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on our holiday journey this year. I hope you've had a blast, just like we have. Some of us have seen some of these movies for the very first time, which is very cool to see. It's something that I enjoy seeing. That we're going through the years watching these films together and experiencing them through our adult eyes, whereas many of these films we've seen through our childlike eyes, which I guess Brandon here in a moment will tell us exactly what is more childlike about next week. But I also go and moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we also podcast on a similar journey about films. And I also do my own pickups and my own film reviews on that channel. So definitely check some of those out. But tell us, what is in store for the New Year's as we are going into this new year of 2022?
We have a big celebration for the year of 2022 because this is it's going to be Inside Movies Galore's 5th anniversary. So it's a big anniversary for our channel here. And we're going to celebrate it by starting out with a previously chosen category that we came back to, which was accidentally scary. So films that we feel have scary elements but weren't intended to be scary in the first place. And of course, we're ending the month with a celebration of Tammy's birthday, where on the 25th, we're going to be talking about Dragonheart, a film with Sean Connery playing a dragon, and The Tingler, which is a basic, back in the day, William Castle film, which is pretty entertaining, or looking in any case. I've never seen it, but if it's like any of the other Castle films I've seen, I'm sure it's awesome. Then on the 18th, we have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, so another great film there. Then on the 11th, we have The Secret of Nem, amazing Don Bluth film there. Mm-hmm. And then on the 4th, we're starting out our accidentally scary month with The Never-Ending Story, a film about a boy and his horse, and the lovely journey they take together.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I mentioned childlike is because there is a childlike empress involved. So, thank you for having a white Christmas with us, ladies and gentlemen, and Merry Christmas, one and all. And to all, a good night.
Happy New Year.
And a Happy New Year, yes.
And
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
White Christmas, legal or otherwise.
Oh my God.
Or it's a rainy Christmas for me.
All right.